All right, it's 6:30. How are we doing on quorum, Rebecca?
Exactly 25, which is quorum for us now.
Okay. Then we can get started. So welcome everybody to this meeting of Community Board 8. I'm Russell Squire, I'm the chair. Just a reminder that if you want to speak during the public session and you haven't signed up yet, you have until 6:45 p.m. to sign up. If you haven't signed up and you want to sign up to speak, just resubmit the form you used to register for this meeting and select the box indicating that you want to speak. So at the outset here, I see we're joined by Senator Liz Krueger. So why don't we unmute her and turn it over to Senator Krueger.
Hi, Russell. Thank you so much for recognizing me. Hi,
Sure.
everybody. I will take very little of your time. One, don't we feel great that it was Inauguration Day? Couldn't we just keep smiling all day afterwards? I know I could. I know that's political, but I just think the whole world is feeling a little happier today. With that note, I do want to highlight that we are starting the state budget process. The budget hearings will start next Tuesday. I'll be sitting through all of them for multiple weeks, but you can get the schedule online, and we are doing them remotely like community board meetings. So you're welcome to watch budget hearings at your leisure or attempt to sign up, but then I would encourage you to sign up rapidly if you would like to testify, because attempting a Zoom meeting on a statewide basis fills up pretty quickly. Tuesday will be the first hearing, and it's on transportation issues. I'd say the primary theme of the state budget right now is we're going to try very hard to get $15 billion of additional money from the federal government to help us fill our budget gap and the city budget gap, which are real and are caused by pandemic and economic slowdown. And the federal government is the only level of government who gets to print money in the basement. And New York State needs some of that money right now. So if you happen to know Chuck Schumer or Joe Biden and like to mention 15 billion, please, for New York, that would be greatly appreciated. Obviously, the most critical issue that continues to come to my office every day is everybody desperately seeking a vaccine. And so when I was asked what Joe Biden's first assignment needed to be by a reporter this afternoon, I said the fact is everything else has to drop in order to make sure we maximize production of the vaccine and movement of that vaccine into every place that needs it. But for whatever reasons, New York seemed to be shifted. We didn't get our share of vaccine in the last several weeks, and we need to make sure that reverses as quickly as possible, because obviously we need to get to herd immunity here in New York, and we are barely getting enough vaccine to keep any centers open at this point in time. Some of you might have heard they were calling and canceling appointments today because they had literally already run out of vaccine. Third and finally, I know that part of the discussion tonight will be around the proposed safe haven shelter on 91st Street. That's planned to be operated by Goddard Riverside and is a unique and very effective model of shelter. I have 2 other safe haven shelters farther south in my district. They are being run superbly. And once they got open, there was really no community concern or complaints. Goddard Riverside is well known to us across Manhattan for the amazing work that they do, serving the homeless, moving people off the streets, moving people into the programs and services they need. I know that I sat through the community board subcommittee meeting on this the other day. I think the response from people who were there was incredibly positive. This is a new proposal for many people. I just urge everyone to keep an open mind and learn what is really proposed there. Because again, based on my experience, and I know Gail Brewer was on with me last week, and other parts of Manhattan beyond my own district, people's experiences with this model and this provider has only been successful. So with that, I don't think you take questions anymore, but Russell will tell me if you do. But otherwise, I will just thank you very much and wish you all staying healthy and safe.
Thank you very much. Next, we're also joined by Council Member Ben Kalos, so we will turn it over to him next.
Thank you. I just want to thank Senator Liz Krueger for coming out tonight in the midst of negotiating the state's budget. We are very lucky to have her as our finance chair in the state Senate. I join with her. The inauguration today was tremendously boring in the best of ways. I'm looking forward to as many more boring days as possible. It was free of a lot of what we were most concerned about on January 6th. And I'm just feeling such a sense of relief. I wanted to just start with a huge thank you. And let me just, 18,000 children woke up this morning in a homeless shelter, 17,000 family members, 35,000 in total. When you ask me how many people are in the shelters, it's 55,000. So the vast majority of the homeless in the city of New York are families. The face of homelessness in New York City are families. There's nothing wrong with these children. They never did anything wrong. They're children. All being homeless means is that you were evicted. Now, to be clear, 1 in 5 New Yorkers is currently unemployed. The only reason that we're not seeing the numbers for homeless going from 55,000 up to its high note of 65,000 is because we have an eviction moratorium courtesy of our Senator Krueger and Albany. And we are going to see an eviction crisis like we've never seen before. And our friends, our neighbors, our loved one becoming homeless in a way that, and all it means is they got evicted. And I'm working on legislation to make the tenant blacklist that keeps people who are evicted from being restricted from their homes. But I would just say that as a principle of faith, I will just say that I'm a member of Or Zarua. I was praying on Yom Kippur 26-hour fast day, and I was praying on the fact that there were so many homeless. I didn't feel the mayor was doing enough. I blockaded the rabbi between him and the break fast and said, how do we fix it? And we suggested getting a task force together. It's called the East Side Task Force for Homeless Outreach and Services. Or Zarua is part of it. Our faith-based providers are part of it. Hopefully we'll hear from them. Our nonprofits are part of it. Elected officials, in order to come and sit at the table, you have to be willing to build supportive housing, homeless shelters, affordable housing wherever we can, because that's the only way to solve it. You just need more housing. And so we've seen some ugliness in the past year, people trying to force homeless out of a hotel. And we welcomed the same number of people to a hotel in the neighborhood. No fanfare, no problem, the men can stay. There's litigation on the west side over whether those men can stay, but we did the right thing. And I'm gonna be very honest, I was very nervous before we went to the hearing at the community board last Wednesday. And it was wrong for me to be nervous, because I am so grateful, so impressed. And you'll hear from some of the faith leaders, you'll hear from some of the neighbors today. Community Board 8 did something that I don't think any other community board's ever done. They voted at a unanimous resolution in support of this safe haven. And I don't think it's ever happened before. And I just want to say thank you. I am so impressed, and I will follow your lead. And we heard from students. We heard from Reverend Roy Cole. I see that we have Beverly Dempsey. We literally just opened a food pantry, the first of its kind in this neighborhood, supermarket style food pantry with the Urban Outreach Center. They used to be on 74th Street. Now they're on between 90th and 91st. If you are hungry, if you need anything, stop on by. If you have something to spare, stop on by. There's no judgments. We serve everybody. You'd be surprised of who we serve. And I see Reverend Dempsey nodding her head. We previously have opened supportive housing for formerly homeless women and children. I hope we'll hear from Wynn. But I can tell you, we got a lot of concerns when we were opening it. People are asking me where it is. I've had probably 10 conversations with people who have had concern. And I've said, you know that there's housing for the homeless down the block. And they're like, no, there isn't. I'm like, no, really, we cut the ribbon. You can read about it. And the kids are loving it. And the kids are in school together. And I can tell you, you're going to hear from folks, but we have supportive housing. We have shelters all over the neighborhood. We have 400 men in a hotel, and we're just not getting the complaints because we've been able to work between elected officials, providers, Community Board 8 to really make sure people are getting the services that they need. So I just want to speak very clearly to the status quo. The status quo is that right now, and I'm sure if I go downstairs, I'm sheltering in place like we're supposed to, but if I go downstairs to 93rd and 2nd, there's a gentleman who has been there in front of the subway every day. I see him when I go to work in person, and we're trying to do the outreach that they want. And he is there, he is decompensating, and I'm worried about him. And he doesn't want to go to a shelter. A shelter is a congregate setting. People have concerns about shelter. I'm imagining a lot of you, if you were offered a congregate setting, wouldn't be as interested. But what we can offer the person who's getting zero resources right now is a safe haven bed. And you're going to hear more about once the community board moves through their agenda and the committee presents their resolution, you will hear more. If you want, you can also go back and watch the hearing from last week. It has a lot of information. But people are going to be offered, like the gentleman on 93rd, and he's going to get the first preference, a place to sleep tonight. He's going to be offered mental health services. He's going to be offered food. He and other women in the district and people with animals, they're going to get offered the resources they need. And they may take it because they're going to have a bed of their own. They're going to have a room of their own. They're going to have a bathroom of their own. And then that day they won't be homeless anymore. They'll have a place to be. They'll be in a safe haven, and they will take it. And so the choice before us is, does the man on 93rd have to stay there for the rest of his life? Or can we offer him somewhere 2 blocks away? Same thing, there's a gentleman on 86th Street that we see often. And I have to just say, there's people who are panhandlers, and a lot of those panhandlers may or may not be homeless, but we're just talking about the unsheltered. And I just want to thank everyone who's on the committee. I will also say that there are a number of people running for city council in 2021. And I think almost every single one of them has taken a position in support, which I think is courageous. I am very supportive. I really want to thank the committee for doing the right thing and passing a unanimous resolution in support. I know there are folks who have questions tonight. I'm hoping you will phrase your questions in a way that they can be responded to. I hope you'll keep an open mind. I can tell you that there's a lot of neighbors who are welcoming them. The children at Eastside Middle School you'll be hearing from them, and they're literally across the street and they can't wait for the welcome their new neighbors. And so I just want to thank everyone. Thank you for your indulgence. If you need anything, if you have any concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. It's bkalos@benkalos.com. I do Ben in your building. I will show up in a Zoom on your building. I used to do it in person. Been in a lot of basements. If you want to join me for my 40th birthday, it's February 5th. We'll be on Zoom. Would love to hear from you. I just want to thank everyone who came out tonight, and I'm just hoping we can welcome some folks, help them off the street with open hearts and open arms. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder to everybody, the public session is coming up later. We also do have Council Member Keith Powers here. And one thing I'll just point out, I forgot to mention this at the beginning. It's not at all a commentary on anything that's going on, but we ask our elected officials if they can to keep it to 5 minutes. So Council Member Powers, take it away.
Russell's running a tight ship over here, my friends, but I like it. Nice to see everybody, and Happy New Year, and 20 days later. But I'm City Councilmember Keith Powers, and just wanted to come and say hello. And as always, want to thank everybody for Community Board 8 for all they're doing during a very difficult moment and difficult time in this city. I know one day we'll be somewhere together in a room, but thank you for all the work you guys are doing virtually. I wanted to first start by introducing, I know many of you knew Jenna, who's in my office. She has left. She's actually going to run a campaign in 2021. But I have a new staffer named Violet who's on here, and I find her in my squares if she just waves. And she's fantastic. She actually used to intern for me, was a fantastic when she interned for me, and we liked her so much we brought her back, and she's been great. But for anything related to CB8 or the Upper East Side or this area, she will be Jenna's replacement, but also my staffer here, my eyes and ears. So treat her nicely. I used to be a constituent liaison to CB8, so it's a very special position. But I know she'll do a great job, and I want to welcome her. Also, wanted to recognize today how important of a day it was today here in our country. And for New Yorkers in particular, it is especially significant, which is because I really hope it is going to mean that we're going to have a improved budget situation here with help from the new Biden administration, which I think will be able to put us to work to be able to help with our small businesses here, help renters, help many other folks who've been struggling during the pandemic, where we really need financial aid to our city and to our state. I'm really hopeful that as we look at this year's budget, which the mayor just announced last week, this will mean we'll have a better opportunity to be able to save many of our cherished institutions here and provide additional support to folks. So that is one thing I'm going to be looking at and working on in the next coming months. I know Councilman Kalos as well, to make sure we have a good standing here in the city and really trying to help many of our small businesses who I think really need financial aid from the city. I just want to just talk about vaccinations very quickly. We are unfortunately, it looks like H&H had canceled a number of appointments today. Mount Sinai previously had canceled some as well. We are running into a supply issue when it comes to vaccinations. It's another issue where I really hope that we'll be able to get help from the new federal administration. But we are, I'm getting lots of calls around vaccinations. People, obviously frustrated with the lack of appointments, the lack of supply, lots of confusing information. My office is set up to help anybody with any information they need. So if you have any questions about the vaccination, eligibility, anything like that, please call us. I don't have shots, so I can't give you a shot. If I do, maybe we'll figure that out. We can't help with supply, but we are making sure that the city and the state are doing everything they can to help people. One of the things they did launch was a portal to help you start finding an appointment. That was one of the things I had been pushing for to the administration, is to set up a centralized place to find your appointment. But we're going to have to do more. And I know people are feeling angsty and frustrated about it, but I just want to make sure they know that if you have a question, to reach out to us. And sometimes it's a question of, am I eligible in the next category or anything like that? So we want to be as helpful as possible. And the last thing I'll mention to keep my 5 minutes is I have a new bill I introduced, which is about noise, which is something we all deal with, which is something this goes back to when I was a constituent liaison, is we would often go and call the DEP to come out and do noise inspection. They would say they went out, and we'd never be able to find out what exactly happened to that noise inspection. We have no track record of what the inspection happened. The inspection, we would have little record of it. Not only do I think perhaps we should move that to the DOB or some other agency, but we have heard from constituents that they are similarly frustrated. They don't know what happens when a noise inspection occurs. So we have now a bill that would require the DEP to start posting the results of every single noise inspection they perform on their website, so that people can go and search and say they went out there, okay, here's a record of it, here's what happened, here was a decimal reading, so forth and so on. It's also a match to another bill I have introduced, which is to actually allow the DEP to, if you want them to walk inside your house and also take a noise measurement, which they say they're technically not allowed to do. It's an issue that is hard to solve, is noise in a noisy city, but we want to make sure people know it when they actually try to go through the prescribed ways to deal with it, that there's actually a way to see what the result was. So we just introduced that bill recently. We're looking at some other ones like that to help make sure that you have people's everyday living experience here in the city is improved upon, and you know that the city's actually doing what they tell you they're doing. So we'll send details around that bill as well, but it'd be great if CBA would be willing to do something in support of that, because I know it's one of those everyday occurrences that does bother people, especially now during the pandemic when you're all trapped at home. So I'll leave it at that. Happy to take questions or not, whatever works.
We are not going to do elected official questions this evening. Okay. So thank you very, very much.
Very tight, Russell. I like it. Very good. I like it.
Well, we're very fortunate. We have elected officials who are very, very responsive. So there are many opportunities for folks to hear from you guys. And if anybody has questions about that, Will can help you get in touch with them.
Thanks, guys.
So thanks. All right, let's get to the first item on the agenda here, which is the swearing in of the 2021 Community Board 8 officers. So we're very, very fortunate to be joined by former Community Board 8 Chair Judge Jim Kleins. So let's unmute him.
Judge, you'll have to unmute yourself. So go to your computer, hit the unmute button, and it gives us enough time to unmute our other officers. So as you guys see it, I will also be asking you to unmute.
Okay, Judge Kleins.
All right, good evening, everybody. It's great to be home. We'll first begin with the swearing in of the newly elected chairman, Russell Squire. So Russell Squire, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Russell Squire,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the City Charter of the City of New York,
the City Charter of the City of New York,
and the bylaws of the Manhattan Community Board 8,
and the bylaws of the Manhattan Community Board 8,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as chairman of Manhattan Community Board 8,
the duties as chairman of Manhattan Community Board 8,
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You can all give him a hand.
Everybody's muted.
All right, so now we'll begin with the swearing in of the officers as a group. Tricia Shimamura, first vice chair. Valerie Mason, second vice chair. Rebecca Dangor, secretary. Billy Freeland, secretary. Anthony Kahn, secretary. So I'd like to ask you all to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I,
Rebecca Dangor,
Valerie Mason,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly
swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the
the
Constitution
Constitution of the State of New York,
the City Charter of the City of New York,
the City
the City
Charter
Charter
of the City of New
of the
York,
City of New York,
and the bylaws of the Manhattan Community Board 8,
and the
and the
bylaws
of Manhattan Community Board 8,
and that I will faithfully discharge
And
and
that
that
I will faithfully
discharge
discharge
the duties as an officer of Manhattan Community Board 8
the duties of,
duties
as an officer of
of
Manhattan Community
Manhattan
Board 8,
Community Board 8,
according to the best of my ability,
according to
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
so help me God.
Help me God.
Congratulations to the newly elected officers of Manhattan Community Board 8, 2021.
So happy to
Thank you.
share my inauguration with the President of the United States and the Vice President.
Yeah,
Not too shabby.
Good night,
Thank you very, very
everybody.
much, Your Honor.
Thank you.
thank
All right,
you.
let's go to the public session. So we are going to start by hearing from 3 speakers from Goddard Riverside to talk about the proposed safe haven. So, and we'll hear them in succession. So Will, if you can unmute Rod Jones, Roberta Solomon, and Carrie Goldwyn, please.
Yes, just had to get the 2-minute timers up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we do that, why don't we go through what the procedure is going to be? So everyone's muted until Will Brightbill, our district manager, unmutes you. And Will, if you could just go through the raising of the hands and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it would help me if you are called on by Russell, if you'll go and raise your hand in the participants menu. So if you're using an older version of Zoom, that you will click on the participants list and you'll find the raise hand button in the pop-up box that happens whenever you click on participants. If you're using an updated version of Zoom, you will need to find the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and open that box and find the raise hand button. You don't want to click on the hand that looks like it's waving. That will disappear after a couple of seconds. But if you will raise your hand whenever you're called on, it'll be helpful for me to find you. And so we're going to go to the first 3 speakers as soon as I have found those 3.
And just make sure you're clicking raise hand and the hand raise, not the hand wave. They look similar, but they're different.
So, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak once your time starts. So,
Rod,
ready?
you're unmuted. Yeah, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Rod Jones. I'm the Executive Director at Goddard Riverside, and I wanted to take an opportunity to thank the Community Board and the Upper East Side community for having us tonight. And just to share a little bit about Goddard Riverside, our history dates back to 1853 with the Wilson Industry School, where we started really helping women to have vocational skills to live independently. Today, we serve about 20,000 New Yorkers across our 24 locations, majoritively in Manhattan and now in Queens. And we have been in the work of trying to help New Yorkers to ensure that they are housed for a really long time. And as Ben pointed out, we too have operated for a really long time, SROs, for formerly homeless and chronically homeless individuals on the Upper West Side. And like some of Wynn's facilities, we sit right next to luxury apartment buildings and people don't even know that we're there. We've been a longstanding provider and advocate for this particular cause. And some of you may or may not know, during the scuttlebutt on the Upper West Side, while we didn't have a position, we recognized community voice and stepped in to raise dollars, really to solve the 2 main issues that were pointed out. And so we really are looking forward to partnering with you as a community. And we're coming to you as early as we possibly can, recognizing that this project opening would be about a year off from now. And so it's our hope that we can build a community partnership with the Upper East Side and Community Board 8. So thank you so much for having us.
All right, next, Roberta.
Happy Inauguration Day. Good evening. I'm Roberta Solomon, Deputy Executive Director for Adult and Community Development at Goddard Riverside. The Safe Haven project that we're talking about tonight is designed from the ground up to meet the residents' needs while minimizing any possible impacts on the community. This is not a drop-in center and it is not a shelter. It is transitional housing where residents will not be transient. They will actually live with us. Unlike a shelter, residents at Safe Havens will have their own private space and storage and not be required to check out during the day or sign back in at night. They're not required to leave. There will also not be any sex offenders allowed at this Safe Haven. There will be 24-hour front desk security plus an external guard during the busiest 12 hours of the day. All services from meals to social work to healthcare will be provided on site, along with a rooftop deck and recreational space and wellness activities. We at Goddard have a continuum of programs to fight homelessness, including providing homeless outreach to the Upper East Side and most of the borough of Manhattan. Safe havens are exactly the tool we need to get people off the street, housed, and into a better life. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie Goldwyn. I'm the director of our Uptown Goddard Homeless Outreach Program, which serves the Upper East Side. We see the need for safe havens like this one every day in the work that we're doing. We see how people's lives are transformed when they have a chance to get housed and start over. The homeless crisis is generated by the loss of affordable housing in New York City. The crisis is not a new one, but there are proven solutions. Goddard has been doing these programs for a long time and has successfully housed thousands of people. There's an estimated 3,000 to 5,000 people living outside on the street. With enough safe havens, like this one that we're planning, coupled with supportive housing, we can house them all. And again, we're happy to take your comments and your questions. And there's a website, goddard.org/east91. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So next up is Jeffrey Schwartz.
And Jeffrey, I cannot find you, so if you are here, please raise your hand through the participants menu through the reactions.
I think if we have Tina Ferriola ready, we can, if you've seen her, we can go to her.
I have Tina's iPhone, so there you go. Tina, you have 2 minutes. Tina, try speaking. We can't hear you.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with the members of Community Board 8 regarding the safe haven being constructed on 91st Street. As we just note, my name is Tina Ferriola. I'm the owner of NYC Elite Gymnastics located at 421 91st Street, next door from the proposed safe haven. During operation outside of the ongoing pandemic, we have about approximately 1,000 children between the ages of 2 through 18 that walk down the street to attend gymnastics at our facility. Many of these young girls walk alone to and from the gym. In addition to our gymnastics facility, as you know, there are countless other children commuting from schools such as Convent of Sacred Heart, as well as the Asphalt Green Sports Facility. I can only imagine many of these children also travel this block alone after school and sport dismissals. For adults of a safe haven with a low threshold to admission to have such access to both physical contact as well as viewing access of these children, many people are very concerned about their safety. Since this was released on Friday night of the holiday weekend, we have had countless families and customers of our facility calling continuously since Friday with grave concerns and worries for the safety of their children. And many of them told us they do not feel safe in having them attend the facility once the safe haven is open. The other last concern that I have with my time is just regarding the lack of knowledge or communication regarding the opening of this safe haven. We really did not receive any notice or opportunity for questions or discussions prior to Friday evening of the holiday weekend. Once again, I thank you very much for your time and look forward to learning more about how we are going to keep our neighborhood and especially children of this block safe. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Beverly Dempsey.
I'm just going to remind you that raising your hand right now is not going to do anything but slow down the meeting. So unless you have been called on. So Beverly Dempsey, if you can unmute yourself, you'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you very
There you go.
much. Hi, sorry about that, folks. I am Beverly Dempsey. I'm the senior pastor at Avenue Church NYC, formerly Jan Hus Presbyterian Church, as been indicated earlier, on 74th and 1st. We are now locating on 1st Avenue between 90th and 91st. Several of you have, I'm sure, been by as we've been distributing food and providing other essential services for people who are most vulnerable in our city. Since we've been operating as the Urban Outreach Center on 1st Avenue, these last few months, we've served thousands upon thousands of people you would never suspect would ever need a handout from anyone. Our organization is a multi-faith worship center for wholeness and hospitality, and we fully support this wonderful opportunity for some of our favorite guests to have a place to stay. I want to tell you one quick story about a guy you might even know. His name is Nick. Right after Thanksgiving, I got a call from this guy I'd never met before, as far as I know. And he said he was really anxious because he is 84 years old. He's just returned to Yorkville after being away for several months during COVID, where he'd gone to stay with another friend because of the disease, because of his age, and because he wanted to be a little bit separate from other people. When he came back to the city, came back to Yorkville, he found that his apartment was no longer his. He lived in this place for 30 years, the same apartment. It was at an affordable rate. His things were no longer, he supposed, where they should be because the door was locked and he couldn't get in. I don't know many more details than that, other than what he said, that he was a rent-paying, upstanding kind of person, and now he didn't know where to turn. However, he knew that our organization was one that had helped people in the past. He'd learned that through the grapevine. He'd walked by our new building. He didn't, and he chose to call. He called me several times over the course of the next handful of weeks, and we did what we could to help him. We told him to call all the right numbers.
Thank you.
Something I need to know?
Yeah, that's your, each person has 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I'm just going to close very quickly by saying Nick ended up in the hospital with arrhythmia.
Yeah, sorry, we're very strict about the 2-minute limit. Next will be Sheila Wilson.
If you don't mind raising your hand, I don't see you in the participants list. Use the raise hand button under the reactions, or if you wave us down, maybe we could find you. Are you iPhone? Is that you?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I came to the US in 1986. So my first job was on 91st Street. So I have known the area really well. I live on the block. I have witnessed tremendous changes, but this news of another homeless shelter in our neighborhood came as a great shock, as no one in our building or anyone who lived or worked on the street knew about it. Absolutely no public notices, and we are all blindsided by the news. We have all been through tremendous hardship with COVID and have seen a mass exodus from this area, including our own apartment building, especially young families. And I don't think that they will be comfortable moving back next to a homeless shelter. I don't understand why the government doesn't invest in low and middle income housing instead of focusing on giving permission for high-end residential and homeless shelters. It might encourage people to return to the city and increase a tax base instead of the alternative. We already have been lied to about a shelter at 316 East 91st Street. We were all told from the very start that it was for abused women. A lie, as all who seem to enter the building are young men and women. The local precinct has been called 10 times this year. I checked yesterday. I see it myself. My work window looks directly onto the building, the front of the building. A good start for you might be to try and be honest and open with your neighbors and not blindside us all. Thank you.
All right. Next, we will hear from Dale Heller.
My name is Dale Heller. I am an 8th grader at Eastside Middle School. I just want to say that I fully support the Safe Haven. I am a leader of the Helping Homeless Women Committee at my school. I believe that the Safe Haven is an essential component to helping the homeless in New York City. While shelters have been established and have done and continue to do so much good for the homeless, it can be hard for individuals to recognize that shelter is needed. There is stigma, and so many homeless people remain on the street rather than turn to a homeless shelter. This Safe Haven will provide an opportunity for homeless people to receive the help that they require for mental health or a transition to a permanent living situation without having to move into a shelter. This is going to be an immense help for the homeless, and by helping people in need, we strengthen our entire community. Thank you for letting me speak and witness this, and I just want to reiterate, I fully support the Safe Haven. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Leslie Lake.
Leslie Lake, if you are here, please raise your virtual hand through the reactions button or the participants menu, because I do not see you. Okay, we'll come back to her, I guess.
Okay. Next, let's hear from Tom Haney.
Tom, if you'll raise your hand. In the participants list. Oh, I see it. There you go.
Got it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, my name is Tom Haney. I'm a resident of the block in question. And I'd pose a question to a lot of the people listening. I question how many of you are actually familiar with our block, because it's a very unique block for both the Yorkville neighborhood and indeed the entire Upper East Side. Right now, there is one residential building between the corners in our entire block. The new proposed structure will double the amount of overnight residents in our block. So over 50% of the people who sleep in a building on this street will reside in this new facility. And I wonder what the impact on a normal residential block would be if you considered trying to put thousands of people, say, between 90th and, or put it on 90th Street between 1st and York instead of 91st Street. So I have a big question on how that's going to impact our small neighborhood. I also question, from what little I've been able to see, the design of the building appears that it will be the tallest building on the street. The entire street, to my understanding, was zoned for only up to 5 stories. This building has 6 street stories, 1 or 2 setback stories, plus a mechanical story. I count 8 or 9 stories before this is done. Also, the entire street, with one exception, is all turn of the century brickwork construction. This is a modern building that's going to stand out like a sore thumb on this particular block. So I wonder what goes into the thought of where we can fit into a neighborhood and if this is indeed the right choice. Thank you.
All right, next we'll hear from Faith Fraser.
That's one. That's it. It's a first.
Faith, you may have to hit start. There you go.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Faith Fraser. As a long-term resident of the Upper East Side and a member of Ethos, I've seen firsthand the need to provide small temporary housing to homeless in-crisis neighbors. Many we pass on our sidewalks and doorways are fearful of entering the huge New York City shelter system, and a safe haven type of residence operated by the well-known Goddard Riverside would be a welcome possibility for them. I say I've seen the need firsthand because I volunteered and coordinated a church dinner program for over 20 years. During the pandemic, I saw the increased number of neighbors, young and old, coming for grab-and-go meals. I saw the anxiety on their faces, not only due to the very contagious COVID-19 virus, but because of their great fear of traveling to go into a large shelter. And last night, I called 311 for a homeless woman bedding down at the Q 72nd Street entrance. It wasn't my first call to 311 about this woman. And because it was cold blue night, when the outside temperature drops to 32 or below and no one is refused shelter, they switched me to 911. Before I could get back downstairs and across the street, an ambulance and a police car had arrived offering assistance, but the woman politely refused to go to a shelter. I feel sure their chances of convincing her to go inside and accept help would have been much improved had there been a small shelter with on-site social services nearby. I ask you to support this proposed purpose-built shelter. Thank you.
Next will be Manish Madwal. He's got his hand
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yes, so thanks very much for allowing me to express my views in this matter. I would like to begin by saying that homelessness is a real problem in New York City, and sincere efforts need to be made in order to address the core underlying issues to help fellow citizens who need the help, and not some stopgap arrangements like the ones that are being proposed here. I do object to the proposal of creating a safe haven at 419, mainly for three reasons. One, it is a grossly inefficient use of taxpayer-funded resources. I would encourage everyone to go to the CBCNY website. It clearly shows that the spend on a single person since 2014 has gone up from $74 to $124. That's almost a 50% increase per person per night for sheltering. Despite that, in the last 5 years, we clearly see that homelessness has only increased in this city. And I believe it is the result of similar decisions that have been made in the past. At the same time, you'll also see that the amount of spend on contractual services, like the ones that are being proposed here, have risen disproportionately in the last 5 years as compared to the rise in homelessness itself. The city's budget is going to be further constrained due to the COVID crisis, and I believe this is reckless use of taxpayers' money. Help should be provided 100%, but at more affordable prices, not for a mere 100 people in an expensive neighborhood by constructing a 7-story tall building. And I would also echo the thoughts that were expressed earlier, that it does not comply with the rest of the neighborhood and the structure of this. It's barely a 15-foot frontage on which a 7-story building is being proposed. It doesn't make any sense. At the same time, this block has already contributed disproportionately towards betterment of the city.
Thank you. Next, we're going to go to someone who had signed up as NAMS W, and I see there's somebody named Namita on the Zoom call. Is that you? If it is, please raise your hand.
Is that you? Just start speaking. You're unmuted.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. My first comment is, like someone before me, that there was no information sharing about this meeting or any other communication. I look forward to more communication on this topic going forward. I hope the community board will make a point and note this, that all the residents in the block did not hear about this at all. I don't know what the protocol is, but I will try to get to the bottom of this. The second point I want to make is definitely homelessness is a problem, and I'm glad that we have an organization that is looking at it. However, I echo other people's comments about safety, security, and whether this venue is the appropriate place, and whether the budgeting has considered whether it's the appropriate usage of funds for the number of people that are being considered, which I've read is around 88. And so one question that I have was, what was the approval process that was followed? Were there other venues, maybe perhaps on 72nd Street, on any other block, where we can find a bigger venue or another space? Did CB8M have other venues to consider? How can I go about finding all this information? I'm interested in knowing more details about this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Reverend Roy Cole.
Reverend, if you're here, would you use the raise hand feature so that we can call on you? Because I do not see you.
Okay, while we wait, we can go to Cindy Mang.
Thank you, Cindy. You can unmute.
Hi. I just I wanted to just hear from Goddard Riverside about more about the safety measures if this is going to go through. I know that there was mention of a 24-hour doorman and another guard, external guard that's around for 12 hours of the day. But that's, I mean, the 24-hour doorman, that seems to be more protecting the residents of this housing project, not so much the neighborhood. And as we've heard already, this is on the same block as Elite Gymnastics, where 2-year-olds, right, children as young as 2 attend. Across the street, there's Sacred Heart facilities where I see teenage girls going in and out, entering in, and leaving by themselves. And down the block, there is the sports facilities. I mean, the neighborhood already has the Urban Outreach Center and the facility for women of domestic abuse, right? All around this area. And I don't know how much planning there is around keeping how this will be carried out effectively and safely. I'd like to hear more about that. I guess, again, as you've been hearing, this has kind of been coming up without the neighborhood really knowing about it. And next thing we know, it's been approved. And this is just within a week, and it doesn't seem fair. And let's not forget, it's not just the middle school that's up the block, it's also an elementary school. So we have a lot of young kids all in a 2-block radius of this facility. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from John Sheehan.
John, go ahead and unmute. Just find the mute button, unmute button at the bottom of your screen. There you go.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm the director of the Ecumenical Outreach Partnership, Fifth Avenue Presbyterian Church, and we've had a long-term relationship with Goddard Riverside, and I think highly of the work they do. I also work at All Souls on 79th Street and Lexington Avenue, so I'm familiar of the each community has its own unique stresses and struggles with the homeless. We tend to see the group as a homogeneous group. It's really not. It's separate, different communities and individual people. I'm a clinician. I help people. And I just like to say that the safe haven model is really one of the better creative models I've seen in homeless services in many years. It is not a traditional shelter. It's one that really fits its description, because when the people who are there feel safe and that they can get services, they're not going to be on the street. They're not going to be, they're going to be in their home because they view it as a home. And that's the big distinction between, even though it's a temporary home, it's a place where they can live with some dignity and some pride and also be safe. And big shelters, many people, I'll leave you on this note, I work on the street helping people who are homeless, and the clients are afraid to go to the bigger shelters. They don't want to be unsafe. They don't want to be the victim of violence. They also don't want to get COVID. And so the safe haven is a really innovative, creative model that can help homeless people. And I understand people's frustrations and concerns, but I would just ask you to consider the fact that this model is a very different model. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Robert Shaloff. And if I mispronounce any names, I apologize.
Robert, go ahead and unmute.
Good evening. My name is Robert Shaloff. I'm the CFO of Eli Zabar's Businesses. Eli has had his businesses on East 91st Street between First and York for close to 30 years. Although the businesses are commercial, Eli is keenly aware of the makeup of the neighborhood. He has tenants that cater to small children at Elite Gymnastics directly next door to the proposed site. Sacred Hearts Gymnasium is directly across from the Eli's Bread building. I don't know how many of the board have been on this street at 7 p.m. when it's dark, but it's filled with children and their parents as they exit the gymnasium. Children and their parents park at Eli's lot directly across from the proposed site as they walk to the asphalt green. Also throughout the day, children and teenagers, often without adult supervision, use 91st Street as a cut-through to get to and from the asphalt green for swimming, soccer, and many other activities. Eli is now investing in the vinegar factory to have the second floor zoned for a school. He has people interested in this space. There is so much to be taken into consideration with this decision. Businesses throughout this city are hurting economically due to the pandemic. Businesses in this neighborhood and on this street see a glimmer of hope with the coming spring and a vaccine. Now is not the time to make a decision that could very well affect those businesses and the children who use them. On behalf of Eli, I ask that you not support the proposal. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Betty Cordova.
Thank you, Betty. You can unmute. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to Goddard for their proposal last week. We live in a unique neighborhood. We have a garbage dump. We have a lot of noise. And my question really is, was a cost-benefit analysis performed for this by the city or any other agency? And with respect to the impact on small businesses, a lot of people have mentioned safety. And if so, can this be shared? And going forward, not just for something like a safe haven, for any other type of thing. I know we had the mechanical void, which was nicked. But for other, things that are going forward, if something like this can be shared, or if you need help from any of us in the community, how can we go forward with something like this?
Thank you. Next, let's go to Claire Beenan.
Claire? Oh, Claire, you just muted yourself again. Try that again. Nope. Try unmuting one more time. There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
Hi, good evening. I live on 91st and First, and I've lived in this neighborhood 35 years and within around a 4-block radius. So it's a great diverse neighborhood, but I'm really concerned that I just heard about this proposed project. As other people have said, there seemed to be no advance notice other than hearing after the board met last Friday. 91st Street, I think this area welcomed the shelter that opened mid-block between First and Second, and we were given information that wasn't quite correct. I have seen men in that building. We were told it was women and children. We were also told there would be security. There is no security there. I haven't seen any problems, but that was not what we were told. There are 4 schools, and I believe there's also a daycare across the street from the proposed new building. So there's 4 schools and a daycare within the 2 blocks. We've had the Marine Transfer Station open. So it seems like an undue burden for these 2 blocks of 91st Street east of 2nd Avenue to have now 2 shelters, the Marine Transfer Station, all the attending garbage trucks, school buses, and there are just a ton of children and elderly people in this neighborhood. And I really question the decision to put this facility, although there's some reassuring things I'm hearing about the type of facility it'll be, it does seem like an undue burden for these 2 blocks of 91st Street when there's a lot of other spots in the neighborhood, even a block or 2 over, rather than consolidating everything within 2 blocks. So those are my concerns, particularly a low threshold for entry facility. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's hear next from Michael Rawlings, please.
Michael, just take it.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, so as the current chief operating officer at Bellevue Hospital and also the board president at 402 East 90th Street, I want to speak clearly about my support for the Goddard facility on East 91st Street. Homelessness is something that we just cannot tolerate in our country or in our city. And, everyone always thinks, okay, not in my backyard. But quite frankly, I have seen firsthand in being the chief operating officer at Bellevue Hospital how important having a home is to our patients and to New Yorkers. And, I understand that there's a lot of schools in the area and that this is a residential area, but, quite frankly, we need this type of facility, and Goddard is an amazing not-for-profit who has just done an amazing job of ensuring that they are making sure that our facilities or their facilities are safe. And I cannot speak highly enough for my support to CB8. I wanted to thank, our chairperson, Russell Squire, and all of our elected officials. This is something that we need, especially during the COVID pandemic, as many people have lost their homes and lost their jobs. It's vitally important that everyone should have a home or a roof over their head. So I am in full support of this, and want to thank the Community Board 8 for supporting this very important decision.
Thanks. Let's go next to Chris Mann.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good evening.
Right?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Mann. I work as a program director at Women in Need. WIN is New York City's largest provider of shelter and services for homeless families with children. Last year, we served nearly 2,500 families in shelter and an additional 309 families in permanent supportive housing. In total, we served over 5,200 children who were currently or formerly homeless. Across all of our services and sites, we provide families with safe, dignified housing and healing, as well as trauma-informed services that support housing stability and promote holistic well-being after the trauma of homelessness. The families that I work with in supportive housing have had a challenging journey, and they've benefited from various resources along the way to get to the permanence and stability that they have today. Being accepted into this community has helped the families that we work with to heal and grow. And for these reasons, WIN supports bringing this needed safe haven resource to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear next from George Collins, please.
George, just unmute whenever you're ready. Just hit that one more time. There you go. George, we can't hear you.
Good evening. My name is George Collins. I'm the co-chair of Monday Night Hospitality, the meal program at All Souls Church that serves close to 20,000 meals a year. Right now, we're serving on the street, as you can imagine. Dawn Sheehan, who spoke earlier, the social worker, and Faith Fraser are both people that help us on Monday nights. John is a professional social worker, helps us. And in 22 years, I've seen nothing but people that are in need of shelter. And I've noticed the difference when that occurs it makes. And the large shelters in the city don't provide that answer. Small safe havens do. I've seen the ultimate results. I've seen them here. I've seen them in Norway. I've seen them in Sweden. You can make a difference in people's lives. And most homeless are not violent. Most homeless are not different from us. They're just in a different place. And we need to make that place safe. Thank you. And I'm fully in support of Safe Haven. And I consider this my neighborhood as an All Souls member and All Souls past president.
Thank you. Let's hear next from Howard Spialter, please.
Howard, just hit unmute. There you go.
I'm not going to repeat those who have spoken against the program, but I do support those who are against the program, not because I'm against supporting the homeless, but we've heard many people speak in connection with this particular proposed facility, and to help the homeless, that's a wonderful idea. However, the majority in the neighborhood who've already been there for a period of time have invested their souls, have invested their money, have invested their lives, have invested their children, have invested so much. And now you see the new garbage facility that recently came in, the women's program. All of this has posed certain problems for the schools that are there. You've heard other people speak far more eloquently than me with regard to the current concerns that are there. So if the major problem is dealing with the homeless, but finding an appropriate location, and I suggest to you that this is not an appropriate location and that further digging must be done to be able to not only take care of those who are homeless and are in need, but not to do so to the detriment of those who have given so much and have been equally hurt so much during the COVID crisis the last year. I am not in favor of this facility where it is proposed and suggest that more appropriate thought must be given to find a more appropriate place. Thank you.
All right, Cassandra Klein, next, please.
Cassandra, I don't see you, so please raise your hand through the reactions button. And I've forgotten to remind, if you're on the phone and you're calling in and Russell calls on you, please hit *6 to raise your hand, or *9. Either one of those two will work. I'll check and get back to you guys. But I do not see her.
Okay, let's go to David Coppell.
Same, not seeing him, so please raise your hand,
Betty
David.
Wallerstein.
Betty, if you are here, *6 to unmute, I believe. Or *9. Give me 1 second. Betty, you can unmute. Betty, there you go.
Thank you so much. It's very kind of you. I did call in to listen, but I don't have a comment for this issue.
Okay.
I'm listening, hearing about it now. Thank you.
Sure. Let's go to Ann Kemper, please.
Ann, just unmute. There you go.
Yes, thank you. So I appreciate the chance to speak on this. I am calling in from the Upper West Side, where I've been for about 14 years. And until this summer, I didn't even know that there was a safe haven shelter in the area. Very few people actually see it, at least according to a local paper. I know that Goddard Riverside does very good work. I've helped facilitate with their holiday grab and go meals, and with I've been involved with people who've been involved with the situation at the Lucerne and other homeless shelters, hotels, and the way that Goddard came in and the on-site services that are being provided now, that situation has really it's really gone from what it was at the beginning to becoming a model for the city. So to the extent that they are involved with this type of work, and that this is a type of transitional housing that helps people get in off the street who, might not, for many good reasons, want to go to shelter, I wanted to support that.
Thank you. Let's go to Lakeisha Taylor next.
Hi, my name is Lakeisha Taylor. I live on the other side of this proposed building, and my two sons actually go to school up the block. And I am somewhat in favor of this proposal because, again, we have to do something to support homeless people. I am disheartened to hear that no one, well, not no one, but many people were not aware, because I myself was not aware of this proposal. And it's sad that we live so close and this idea is so close and so many people were ill informed. And this is going to be in our neighborhood. And I am not one to say not in my backyard, because I am also a co-founder of the Holmes Isaac Coalition. And that is part of my mission to help my community. And I am all for helping my community. I am all for helping the homeless. But again, I have two young sons. And I hear the people who are saying, I don't want this because of the children. But we have to help our homeless. And there needs to be a better idea, a better form of how we can protect them. Because to say we're going to have security guards, and that's the idea, we won't have sexual predators, and that's the idea, there needs to be more. Because again, when someone's coming in off the street, you're not going to have that immediate background check. You're not going to know who they are. So again, these are people you're just trying to save right away. So you can't save everyone right away. You can't protect that child who's just walking by. So again, I love the idea and I'm all for it, but I also love my children.
Thank you. So before we go to the next speaker, somebody had signed up as CM on the on our website. So if that person can raise your hand, and in the meantime, we're going to go to John Jacobs.
John, please confirm. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Marvelous. I'm also a member. I also live on 91st Street in the block that we're talking about. I'm very upset that only at the last minute I heard about this proposal. I just want to say that I think that the presentation of the people in favor of it, and we're all in favor of doing things for the homeless, is unfairly quixotic, rosy, and I do think unfairly unrealistic. Mr. Kalos, who I don't know personally, who I thought made an impassioned speech, talks about bringing a, quote, decompensated man into our block, where there are children, schools, exercise studios, all this kind of stuff here. And I don't think that's fair to these people or to any of us. The idea that we're going to have decompensated people, by the way, I should add that if anybody understands decompensated people, it's me. I'm a practicing psychiatrist. And I ran the Montefiore outpatient clinic for many, many years in the South Bronx, taking care of decompensated people. It is unfair to assume that you can just take decompensated people, put them in their home, and they will get better and everything will be all right. That's quixotic, it's totally unrealistic, and it's not very thoughtful about the people who live around here. I don't think the way this has been shoved down our throat is fair, and I think it needs to be completely rethought. And I do not support this any longer, though I did initially. Thank you.
Next, Jordan Stein, please. He's got his hand up. All right.
Perfect. So I'm here to speak in support of it. I'm a homeowner. I live on 88th Street, just 3 blocks away from where this is. I run a small business. I, to some degree, understand the people's concerns, but I really cannot say strongly enough. I really hope you go and do a shift at a soup kitchen or speak to someone on the streets and really understand that these homeless people have the same goals and dreams that we have. They just want a safe place to be. And this type of safe haven housing is really the future of homeless services. The shelter system has been an absolute disaster. The last statistics I saw was that 61% of the shelter, of the people in the shelter system have gotten COVID. To put that in perspective, the county with the most COVID cases in the entire country has had 10. These shelters are not safe. They're not good places to be. And to keep shoving more and more people in there is cruel. And I understand that change is scary, but I really, really encourage you to talk to some of these residents who are going to be moving in, and you'll find them really wonderful people. I really promise. So I hope you'll support this because you're going to do a lot of good by doing it. You can take the rest of my time.
Thank you. Sean Kennedy is next, please.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean. I am the program director of the Urban Outreach Center. We are around the corner from the proposed site. And as an organization, we have a food pantry and a soup kitchen, and so many neighbors have been incredibly supportive. We as an organization absolutely wholeheartedly support the Safe Haven on 91st. I think just on a personal note, what a blessing it would be to know that there is community support, you know, thinking if I were ever in this situation, and this were my life in the being weighed, I'd really hope that people supported it on my behalf. So as an organization, as the program director of that, I wholeheartedly support Safe Haven. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Patrick Boebelin.
Oh, hey. So yeah, I'm Patrick Boebelin, and I'm addressing you today as your neighbor, as a lead organizer for the UES Mutual Aid Network, and as a 3 to 5 year volunteer at the weekly soup kitchens at Temple Charade Tefillah and All Souls Unitarian, respectively. So we're talking today about a real substantial solution for helping our fellow New Yorkers and our neighbors. I've worked at my local polling place at PS 158 for a few election cycles, and just now in the past year, I've seen more and more of my coworkers there joining soup kitchen lines, and a few who've been sleeping rough on the streets and panhandling. Now, they've been in the neighborhood for decades. You probably see them when you go to vote. These are men and women on fixed incomes. They're older neighbors, and they look a lot like the people on this call, and they look like my neighbors, and my neighbors deserve housing. No one disagrees that homelessness is a problem, but it demands we step up with bravery, cast aside old concepts of homelessness as a moral failure. We must not lead with our fears and our imagination of who homeless New Yorkers are. It's a moral imperative that we balance our worries about our own safety as the housed with the safety of the unhoused, sleeping outside or in the shelter system. Many have mentioned the schools nearby, which is a good thing when there are 17,000 homeless children in this city who are going to be helped by this transitional housing. We must see housing insecurity with clear eyes as a systemic failure, and one that we collectively in our neighborhood are brave enough to fix in our lifetimes, no matter how much it's an unwanted inheritance. Now, 88 beds isn't enough, but it's a start, and it's a real solution to a real problem. And it says that we on the Upper East Side want to lead the way, we want to lead with bravery, and we want to lead with love. There's no religious dogma that doesn't require us to help those with less than us. So if you pray or believe in a higher power, please support this effort for transitional housing.
Thank you. Let's hear next from Cesar Perez, please.
Hello.
Good evening, everyone. This is Cesar Perez, the Senior Director of Facilities Operations at the American Society of Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. We're located adjacent to the proposed safe haven facility. I'm really just interested in knowing if there will be any meetings between the owners and the developers, interested in understanding how the construction will impact the facility and the street, our operations. There's a lot of movement in that neighborhood to begin with. So just really eager to find out some more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Gina Reitmeyer.
Gina, if that's you, please unmute and identify yourself.
Yes, my name is Gina Reitmeyer. I am the director of the Homeless Prevention Program at Lenox Neighborhood House. Prior to this role, I work at the Park Avenue shelter. So I know firsthand how much our community will benefit from a safe haven. And Lenox Neighborhood House fully support the safe haven for our community. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Ben Wetzler.
And you're unmuted.
Hi, my name is Ben Wetzler. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. My name is Ben Wetzler. I live just across the street on York Avenue between 90th and 91st Street. And I came to the Health Committee meeting to ask the representatives from Goddard Riverside about the plans for transitioning people into permanent housing after they've lived in the shelter for a while, and was very satisfied with their answer. And so I just kind of wanted to come again tonight and say that I think that this is a great project. It'll be good for the neighborhood to give people who are currently living on the street somewhere where they can go, and where they can kind of transition into a more permanent place in the community. And given all of the kind of hubbub that there was on the west side and the kind of lack of support for their homeless neighbors over there, I was really glad that the Health Committee for CB8 was so supportive of this project, and I really hope that the full board will be as well. So I urge you to support it, and I'm really glad that we're moving forward with it. Thank you.
All right. There was somebody named Jeffrey Schwartz who was signed up to speak, and I see that there's a Margaret Schwartz on the in the meeting here. So if that's Jeffrey Schwartz, if you could raise your hand, that would be great. And in the meantime, we will hear from Max Tagovnik. Is Max here?
I don't see a Max Tagovnik. Oh, there you go.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so this might be a little off topic given what everybody's just been speaking about, but my name is Max Tagovnik, and I'm a born and raised New Yorker. And a few weeks ago, there was a number of stories printed in the news about an attack that happened on Fifth Avenue. I was the driver of a BMW that was attacked by a bunch of teens on bicycles. And one of the reasons I'm here speaking today is because I wanted to get more involved with my community. I also feel like my elected leadership owes me some answers to what occurred. Mayor de Blasio was asked specifically about this by me from reporter Hazel Sanchez, using me by name, and he said that there should be consequences, that he doesn't ever want to see this happen again in New York. But it's been 3 weeks. I've heard from one detective. I've spoken to Rebecca Seawright. I haven't heard from a single person in the government. I am traumatized, and my mom is traumatized. We feared for our lives in that moment, and not a single person has reached out to say, we're sorry that this happened. We take responsibility, and let's figure out a way to move forward and ensure it never happens again. No one should ever have to go through what I went through, and I really hope the elected officials, the appointed officials, will look at this as a learning experience and try to find solutions, short-term, long-term, in terms of socioeconomic, on how we can give these kids hope. The anger in their eyes that I saw that day made me feel like they had no other outlet to express themselves in that destructive way. And that's what breaks my heart. That, and hearing my mother screaming to the 911 operator that we're about to die. We need help. no one should ever have to go through what I experienced. And I really hope something comes out of this that's positive. So it's not the trauma that defines us, but the good that comes out of it that will. On a side note, because there's too much to say in 2 minutes, I just want to say, Will, if you ever run for elected office, I will vote for you. You're an amazing guy.
Thank you. I'm very sorry that that happened. Let's go next to Larry Wood, please.
Thank you, and I want to thank the community board for this opportunity to speak. I work at Goddard Riverside and have been employed there since 1987, and I guess I wanted to address some of the points that are being raised by folks. One, the issue about notice, there was no intent to blindside folks or to shock anybody, and nobody's trying to shove this thing down anybody's throat. Our board just approved this back in December before the holidays. After we were selected by Department of Homeless Services, we immediately went to the local elected officials before the holidays, to the community board, and are going public. And we're reaching out to as many community stakeholders as possible. This is a full year before this is even going to open. And there's no community approval required. The resolution that the board has considered is recognizing the need for such a safe haven facility and calling for a community advisory board, because it is very critical that we do address the concerns that people are raising. We pride ourselves in running good facilities that meet the needs of the people we're serving and the community we reside in. As you heard from our executive director, Rod, we've been in existence since the 1850s. We pride ourselves on high quality programs. We did the first homeless outreach in 1979. The first types of safe havens were known as stabilization beds, rented rooms, and SROs. This safe haven is a tool to engage homeless people in your community and to give them an option to get off the street and on the pathway back into housing with the appropriate support services they need. So it is a tool that's going to help improve conditions on the east side and throughout Manhattan. I urge you to get more information about the project. Go to the website and see the full presentation we made to the community board committee. And I hope this resolution passed and we can create a community advisory board to address concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Susan Peters next, please.
Susan, just unmute.
Oh, hi. Hi. I'm a member of New Yorkers for Wired Tech. I've spoken several times on the health danger with the introduction into our city of wireless antennas on practically every street corner, 8,000 already installed and 4,000 more planned. I'd like to strongly encourage you to read a December article in the magazine The Washington Spectator by Barbara Koppel. If you let me know, I'll send you a copy. She outlines how the telecom industry has captured our government regulators, the press, and retaliates against scientists who don't toe the line. The result? New Yorkers are being subjected to levels of radiation that affects everyone's health. Here are some examples. Scientists worldwide have produced over 2,000 studies that warn that these devices and antennas expose people who develop tumors in the brain, thyroid, prostate, acoustic nerve, and breast. Robert Kane, an electromagnetics engineer who tested wireless devices for Motorola starting in the 1980s, was able to confirm that cell phone companies knew their products could harm and even kill, but like the tobacco, asbestos, and fossil fuel industries kept the news quiet. The telecoms purchased seats in the watchdog agencies, media. In 2013, President Obama named the CEO of the main telecom trade group to chair the FCC. Please be the watchdog for New Yorkers' health. Read the article. I'll send it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Arthur Gwynn next, please.
Arthur, just confirm unmuting on your screen. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Arthur, and believe it or not, I'm not here to talk about the Safe Haven project.
I wanted to just quickly raise something that's kind of been bothering me, and now that all has been said and done with the inauguration today, believe it or not, 4 of the 13 Trump properties in New York are in Community Board 8, and 3 of those 4 have Trump's name emblazoned on the front of the buildings. I know that they are privately owned. 3 of them are owned by Trump. 1 of those does not have his name on it. The other one is a co-op. Those 3 locations are Trump Plaza, which is 167 East 61st, Trump Palace, which is 200 East 69th, and Trump Park Avenue, which is 502 Park. All 3 of those have Trump's names emblazoned on the front. And I don't know if this board either has the authority or inclination to do anything about that, but I would certainly love to stop seeing his name as I'm walking through my neighborhood. I don't know if there's a capability for the board to perhaps send a letter to them asking them to remove the name. Again, one of those 4 properties already doesn't list his name on the front, so it certainly isn't something that needs to be there. And I would certainly like to patronage some of the businesses in those buildings without getting a bad taste in my mouth. That being said, with the last of my time here, I'd also like to kind of note on the safe haven topic, now that I've been listening to everyone's speaking about this, I just got to say, it sounds like there's some residents in 91st Street that needs to stop kind of watching out their windows as the children are walking by and maybe spend a little bit more time volunteering for homeless services. These are not big, scary people that you need to be afraid of your neighborhood. These are people that need help, and they're people that we're capable of helping. Thank you for my time.
Thank you. Next up is Andrew Ravish here.
Hi, happy Inauguration Day, everyone, and thank you for letting me speak. Normally, I focus on the need for a 210-foot height cap on all new developments immediately, but today I'm going to echo our new president and speak a little more broadly because we have a tremendous opportunity to build back better. Governor Cuomo is bullish on encouraging new construction. New sensible construction would be a boon to our area, not only in job creation, but also in restoring units of housing that are affordable that have been destroyed. We can stop the lie that building tall means building affordable, as that way of thinking and building has actually eliminated 14,438 net rent stabilized units in the Community Board 8 area alone, and over 23,000 units in Manhattan. Additionally, this community board has talked about racial, housing, social, economic, and environmental justice, and addressing overdevelopment is a great first step as Black New Yorkers bear the brunt of the damage of overdevelopment harm. I'm excited for the Environmental Committee to schedule its first meeting and put it on the calendar because we have 2 pressing areas of concern at the moment: air quality and water quality. On the air quality front, there's definitely opportunity to partner with schools in the area to help us collect data as a part of their science curriculums because near these construction sites, air quality is bad. And on the water quality front, the water has been tasting different lately and we need an independent body to monitor it. Lastly, our empty retail stores are abundant and in them there's opportunity. Instead of allowing them to be bulldozed for luxury towers, they can be used for temporary vaccination sites and we can support the development of new mom and pop shops in our area. With citywide elections this year, I'm hopeful of great change and I know that Community Board 8 will play a significant part and I hope to join you in these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that is everybody who has signed up to speak in the public session. So we're going to move on to the next item in the agenda, which is adoption of the agenda. Lowell Barton.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. Rebecca had her hand up.
She's just thumbs up.
Okay, got it. Lynn? Lynn Strong? Shinozaki?
I second that.
Okay. Anyone voting against adoption of the agenda? No. Okay. Next, adoption of last month's minutes. Is there a motion to adopt those?
Rebecca?
Motion to adopt the minutes.
All right, Rita.
Rita, are you seconding?
Second.
Thank you. And just a reminder, we can also second with the thumbs up. So if secretaries and folks see the thumbs up and everything, let me know. We'll count that also. Anyone opposed to adoption of the minutes? All right. Next, let's get the Manhattan Borough President's report, please.
Isabel, is
Isabel here?
The Manhattan Borough President coming, or?
Yes, the Borough President is gonna be in attendance and she will deliver the report. Thank you.
Got it. Okay, we'll move on then to the other elected official reports in the meantime.
If you all would raise your hands so that Russell can call on you in order of your raised hand, you'll have 2 minutes as well.
Okay, we'll start with Rebecca Grigas.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. This is Rebecca from Assemblymember Dan Court's office. Happy New Year into January 20th. Earlier this month, session began in Albany, and the Assembly member has begun his 10th year serving as the representative for the 73rd Assembly District, so fun milestone. The plan for this year's session is absolutely going to be focused on COVID relief packages, as well as raising more revenue for the state this year. With budget season upon us, and as we stare down a near $15 billion deficit, Dan will be working closely with his colleagues in the Assembly to reject devastating cuts to essential public services like the MTA and to secure a fair and just budget that includes funding for healthcare, education, transit, and housing. And as always, if you have any questions or need help with anything, please give our office a call or send an email, and we will do our best to help you out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Jack Robbins.
Jack, you muted yourself.
Yes, sorry about that. My name is Jack, everyone. I am representing Assembly right tonight. Just to give you a few legislative updates, Assembly Speaker Carl Hasty appointed Assemblymember Seawright as the chair of the Assembly Task Force on Women's Issue. This is a new chairship for the Assemblymember, and our office is really excited to work on women's issues throughout New York State and here in our community. Additionally, the Speaker also appointed her to the Ways and Means Committee, which will be very important in this year and years to come as we fight the detrimental effects that COVID has had on our state finances. We have also introduced new legislation this year that's going to be aimed at prohibiting the sale of merchandise with symbols of hate, including but not limited to symbols of white supremacy, neo-Nazi ideology, and the battle flag of the Confederate. Now more than ever, we need to condemn these hateful speech and ideology, and we introduced that legislation after the horrific scenes at the Capitol on January 6th. Additionally, our office is up and running. If anyone needs assistance, please consider us a resource to you. Our storefront office is at East 79th Street and York Avenue. We do every other week, we do a Tuesday housing legal clinic at no cost. It is over the phone, and please give our office a call if you need that assistance. Every Thursday, from 12 to 2, we do give out masks and hand sanitizer to community members. And we are continuing to do our virtual town hall Tuesday with updates and resources in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our office phone number is 212-288-4607. Please feel free to contact us with any of your questions or concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Shelby Garner.
Good evening. I apologize if I'm going to speak quickly. I've got a fair amount to update you on that Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney has been doing. She closed out 2020 with several big legislative wins, including passage of a bill to ensure the creation of a Smithsonian Women's History Museum, expansion of federal employee parental leave. She had earlier passed a bill for federal employees, but TSA and FAA employees were not included in the original law. So she was able to pass legislation to include them. She also passed a Corporate Transparency Act, which requires the disclosure of beneficial ownership of anonymous LLCs like those used by Epstein's accomplice to avoid law enforcement. This has huge money laundering and also affordable housing ramifications. On vaccination, she is working to expedite New York's access to more vaccines. She's called for 9/11 first responders to receive access to the vaccine due to underlying respiratory health issues, and has called for the opening of a vaccination site on Roosevelt Island. As the reappointed chair of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, she is investigating law enforcement's inadequate response to the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. She has also introduced legislation to allow law enforcement to track financial support for the insurrection, including the possibility that there was financial support from foreign state actors. Having been an eyewitness to the terrible events on January 6th, she was honored to be at the inauguration today to witness the peaceful transfer of power, which is the cornerstone of our democracy. Additionally, tomorrow evening, the Congresswoman will be hosting a telephone town hall for small businesses about COVID relief, including the reopening of the PPP program, and I will share the call-in details with Will.
Thank you. Next, Violet Gare.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see some familiar faces and meet everyone new. If you weren't on earlier, I am the new community liaison for Community Board 8 for Council Member Keith Power's office. I don't have a ton of updates relative to what he said earlier, but as far as vaccine appointments go, I hope everyone knows that, since January 11, folks above the age of 65 have been eligible for the vaccine. Councilmember Powers and Mark Levine sent a letter to the DOH requesting the expansion of the pre-registration system to make the distribution of the vaccine more efficient. All New Yorkers should be able to submit their information for pre-registration right now to help avoid the system being overwhelmed as eligibility expands. And I hope that everyone here knows if you have any difficulty getting appointments or questions about how to operate the system, please contact our office. You can email me. It's just vger@council.nyc.gov. The council member also mentioned the DEP noise inspection posting bill. Many of you might not be surprised to know that noise complaints are one of the issues our office hears about the most frequently, and just this month, he introduced Intro 2180, which is a bill that would require the DEP, which handles noise complaints, to post the results of the noise inspection online within 24 hours to make the process more transparent and bring the DEP inspections in line with those of other city agencies required to post the results of their response to complaints. And to quickly wrap up, our office just wanted to thank everyone for the toy drive this past holiday season, raised nearly $1,500 for warm coats for New Yorkers and almost 200 toys. So again, nice to meet you and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So that's it for the elected official reports. And when
one more, Michael Stinson.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yes, sorry, Russell. I had I don't know what's going on with my Zoom. I couldn't raise my hand. I'll be brief. I see your numbers of participants are plummeting since the elected reps started speaking, so I'll be brief so they don't lose everybody. Just one update from Comptroller Scott Stringer's office. Last week, the Comptroller released a plan to make sure New York City small businesses get their fair share of Paycheck Protection Program, PPP funding, amid the ongoing economic distress of the pandemic. With the program now reopened, Comptroller Stringer outlined recommendations for the city to proactively help more small and immigrant-owned businesses apply for and receive this vital lifeline, including creating a multilingual community outreach team, partnering with nonprofits and external stakeholders to increase awareness, and creating a comprehensive list of all the financial institutions administering the PPP so businesses know exactly where to go. The PPP program was intended to support small businesses by helping them to retain staff and stem job losses amid the shutdowns and other disruptions in the early months of the pandemic. However, analysis released by Comptroller Stringer found that New York City lagged far behind in its share of eligible businesses that received a PPP loan. Just 12% of the more than 1.1 million employee-based and non-employer-based businesses in the city received a PPP loan, compared to a more sparsely populated and less economically impacted states such as North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Iowa, where more than 20% received a business loan. The report also showed notable disparities between boroughs and industries receiving PPP loans, with nonprofits getting minimal support through the program. I'll drop this in the chat and I'll leave you with the 20 seconds back. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we will turn to Borough President Brewer when she arrives. So in the meantime, we will move on to the next item in the agenda, which is the chair's report. So I know we all want to make these meetings shorter. I hope you'll bear with me for a longer than usual chair's report tonight. First, I want to express my happiness and relief at the successful and uneventful presidential inauguration that took place earlier today. Turning to this community board, I want to say once again, what an honor and a privilege it is to be here as the chair and to thank the board once again for your confidence in me in giving me this role. I want to start out my tenure by saying the number one rule of this community board and these meetings is civility. This is something that I think our community board has generally been very good about, but I just want to emphasize how important it is. Civility is critical to everything we do as a board. The issues we address are important, and the reason that we're on the board is because we are passionate about these issues, but at all times we have to remember to express our views and listen to the views of others in a respectful way. Everyone should feel welcome to contribute their opinions, regardless of who you are, how long you've been on the board, or how many people agree or disagree with you. This is not only important to the values of openness and inclusion that we share as a board, but it also makes the board stronger. We make better decisions when we are able to consider different points of view. Often, efforts to accommodate concerns or even to blunt criticism lead to better resolutions. In addition, part of having an atmosphere of civility and respect means that we have to be respectful of each other's time. So I'm asking that we all take steps to ensure that this meeting does not go on too long. In particular, number one, avoid repetitive comments. When others are speaking, listen to what they are saying. If you have your hand raised and someone speaking before you makes the point you want to make, consider just lowering your hand rather than repeating the same point that someone else has made. Number two, be concise. The most persuasive and cogent comments are the ones that get to the point right away. We don't have a time limit for board members speaking, but it's a good rule of thumb to try to limit your comments to 2 minutes, and most of the time that's going to be enough to make your point. Number three, no one is going to be allowed to speak more than twice on an item unless it's absolutely necessary. Four, once we've dealt with an item, such as by voting on a resolution, discussion is over on that item and we will move the agenda. Finally, I want all the other board members to know that they shouldn't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions or concerns or to talk about whatever's on your mind. I'm happy to email with you, but I prefer talking by phone if you're willing to call me. I think you all have my phone number, but if not, you can get it from Will. So I just want to close by saying I'm really looking forward to working with all of you this year and looking to forward to a very productive year together. So thank you very much. And with that, I will turn it over to Will for the district manager's report.
So tempted to make a joke about offering up your phone number right now to everybody streaming, but I'll decline and just say, welcome to all the new officers. We're so excited to continue working with you guys in your new capacity. Recently, our staff, we've been working on some restructuring, and so most of the committees you should have heard from your new committee liaison. If you have not, don't hesitate to reach out. You know, we want to work hard to make sure that your committees are successful, and you know, we have a great team, so don't hesitate to reach out. And the other thing, you'll notice I've put our newsletter in the chat a couple of times. We are working very hard to make our newsletters a little bit more user-friendly, a little less clunky. They've come a long way since 2017, but they still have a lot of ways to go. So if you see something you like, please let us know. We've tried changing a couple of things. And if you see things you don't like, you can also let us know as well. And with that, I'll give it back over to Russell so that we can move the agenda and get everybody home. Wait, yeah.
Thank you. All right, so let's turn to the committee reports. And the first report is from the Health, Seniors, and Social Services Committee. So we'll give it to Rebecca Dangor, Wilma Johnson, and Barbara Rutter, who are the co-chairs. I want to congratulate Wilma as a new co-chair of this committee.
Thank you. I think I'm going to start talking, if that's okay. We've heard a lot about the Goddard Safe Haven. I'm going to bring up a couple of points that I didn't hear or stress those that I think may have missed. First of all, Goddard has not only been around in the city for decades, but they've been in our community for a long time. If you see a homeless person on the street and you see some social worker type person talking to them, there's a good chance that it is Goddard or one of the agencies, and they've been very successful along the way. I will also say that we were impressed that they reached out and really want to be a good neighbor. They came to us a year before this is a proposed opening because they want a constant dialogue, and they promised to come back with any issues. On a personal note, I just have to say I was a little taken aback by all the comments that we haven't, that people didn't know about it. I will say that at least a week before our Health Seniors Committee meeting, not this meeting, I went around, I not only contacted Asphalt Green, when I went to that neighborhood, I saw that there was a gym, and I went into the gym to give a flyer and explained what it was and that I hope that somebody's contacted. I believe in full disclosure. I also contacted a couple of people that are in the various buildings around asking if they would tell their neighbors. So, and I also bugged Will to e-blast the agenda out twice. We usually do it once, just for full disclosure. So I'm sorry if people didn't know, but there will be many chances that Goddard has promised to come back. And they've also promised to create a community advisory board so that there would be constant input. This is a safe haven, which is a little different than a shelter. The words were used. It is smaller. There would be individual rooms. It is longer term, and it's with a lot of support services. I spoke to Larry Wood during the week, and he talked about the psychiatric care that's there, as well as social workers, medical care, and so on. And very importantly, these are the people that are in our neighborhood now. And instead of using our streets as bathrooms and panhandling for food because they are hungry, they will have rooms with 3 meals a day, with a recreation room, with medical care and psychiatric care and recreation and so on. And therefore, the community as well as the committee was very positive about it. I just want to talk also about the street. I really did, not only did I walk, but I brought people around just to take a look at the neighborhood, just to see the street. It is right next to the back end of the ASPCA. The ASPCA is on 92nd Street. The back end is literally next door, and it's a great big white building. Across the street, there is an office building. I think it's the Leeds, a very modern big building. And most of the street is commercial with great big like garages type. There is the gym, and that's why I contacted the gym, but it is a street that isn't the most residential street that we usually see along the way. And that's why I think our committee unanimously passed it after hearing from the community a lot. I don't know if there's questions, if there's anything else.
I just want to also just state so the emails and the posting happened on January 6th and the meeting was on January 13th. I just want to mention that the building will be 7 stories. And as well, in terms of security, they did say they will work with the stakeholders and the community board to ensure there will be outdoor security during times where children are being dropped off and picked up.
And they made it that they will work with us, Rebecca, that they will work with the neighborhood if you want more time, less time in certain areas. And Goddard couldn't have been more open and willing to work with the neighborhood.
Lastly, in terms of process, we did not have any say over where the location would be. For those who were wondering about that, they came to us. And I think we should turn it over to board questions.
Well, let me just make one other comment about it. First of all, their aim, no, I forgot what I was going to say. Their aim, it's a long term, and their aim is for permanent housing. I did have another point and I forgot. Any questions?
Let's go to Marco.
Marco?
Sorry, just one quick thing, just for folks who are on the meeting. At this point, we're in executive session. Only board members will be speaking now, unless we need to go to Goddard for a question. So folks from the public, do not raise your hands, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this application. According with the Speaker Corey Johnson plan, quote, from unemployment to homelessness, it has become increasingly clear that negotiate benefits parcel by parcel, neighborhood by neighborhood, is often supporting equitable and inclusive neighborhood investments and city-wide growth. End of quote. Presently, we don't have a plan. Therefore, this is as a right of development, and I am supporting this project. Being said that, we need crucially a housing model plan for a proactive vision into the future. Before COVID-19 started, the city had 1.1 million of applicants for affordable housing lottery program, and the city built 140,000 units, contributing a minor 12% to the crisis, and leaving 88% unresolved. In our community, 79,000 households are living in rental units, from which 52% are paying more than 30% of their income for rent. And another 23% are paying more than 50% of their income. This means that almost 2/3 of the household renters are near to become homeless, as well as with less food on their tables, less money for transportation, etc., etc. The affordable housing and homelessness crisis will only continue to worsen as we confront the highest rate of unemployment. And when we face the end of the stopping the eviction protection program, the crisis will be unsustainable and disheartening. Consequently, we need urgently a meaningful policy in land use and capital planning decisions for an equitable, just, and sustainable growth to have an inclusive and vibrant neighborhood for all, regardless of their income, sex, age, race, and other social identities. Thank you.
Great. Next, let's go to Alita.
Thanks, Rebecca. I just would like to say that I know that there are some upcoming questions, and assuming the questions are answered satisfactorily and the board approves this, that I would really encourage Goddard and members of the community to have a meeting so that the community's concerns could be responded to and addressed. The community board could or could not be involved in that, but there should be a conversation. The community raises some questions that need answers, such as security, that I know Goddard spoke about when they came to the committee meeting last week, because was it last week or the week before, because I attended that meeting. So I would just really urge a dialogue where the community can be satisfied and people can get homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Elaine.
Okay. It's been an interesting presentation around the Goddard Riverside Safe Haven. Before I comment with my concerns, let me say that I have for years been a consultant on homeless services in our neighborhood. As we look at the proposal, from a zoning perspective, and a number of us on the committee of zoning looked at this, Goddard is requesting an R1 zone. The current zoning is C8-4. So we would like to talk with them about what is going on here. Also, the Department of Buildings has raised issues and has denied the application at this point. So we have a number of questions around who owns the property, who funded it, what is the plan? The COO for this location does not meet the 88 beds that Goddard is requesting. I would like to see that we have a safe haven in the community, but I want to make sure that if this is the location, that whatever variances or special permits are needed, that we work with Goddard on this. Right now, we've been told it's as of right. According to what we've reviewed, it is not as of right. So we would like to work with them, and I think maybe the health committee should join us in a joint meeting with zoning, or we look at other options to find out what the issues are. We have lots of questions, and let me repeat again, I myself have been a consultant for homeless services and indeed led the mission to ensure that at the Armory on 67th Street, when they wanted to kick out the women's shelter, that it had to be maintained there and it was put into the deed. So it has nothing to do with what we want for our community. We just want to know that where they're located, they are legally there and we don't face any other questions. Thank you.
Let's just go.
Do you want to, or
Can we go to, Borough President Gail Brewer's here, so let's go to her now, please.
Russell, I can wait. I'm happy to wait because it's an important discussion. So I'm not rushing.
Keep going.
I already did a million meetings tonight, so I'm willing to wait. You're the last one. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Could we maybe unmute someone from Goddard to talk about the fact whether or not it's as of right, et cetera, really quickly?
Yeah, this is Rod. So Ms. Walsh, just to clarify, I want to answer the first key question and clarify that Goddard is actually not the owner of the land or the building. We the owner of the project for whom we lease from is actually Bayrock developer, and so we don't manage the construction portion of it and the permit portion. And so, as we said to the committee, we're more than willing to bring Bayrock to the table to have that discussion, so that everything is on the table.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Tricia.
Hi, everybody. So I spoke in favor and actually put the resolution forward at the committee meeting for this application and for this project, and I would ask that, you know, even after hearing everybody's questions tonight, I'm still in favor of this project. You know that I'm a mom. You all know that I'm also a social worker. I know social services very well, and quite frankly, I think that this is a real question of taking care of some of our other Upper East Side folks who just are too often kind of overlooked and overshadowed. I will say that I believe that this safe haven model is one of the more effective models. You know, too often that there's just a cycle that homelessness puts you in that just you can really never break free of. The safe haven model has been a proven model of providing wraparound services and meeting clients where they're at, giving them all of the kind of services that they need in one place. I think is just so incredibly incredibly important. But I will also say that as a parent and as somebody who lived right on 90th Street, just a block over, for years, I was supportive of this project also when I heard Goddard talk about this advisory board. And so I just want to say that one big piece of this is that this is not a, vote on this now and then we're done with this and then, see you later, 91st Street, deal with it. This is something where I trust that Goddard is creating an open kind of communication model so that as we go forward with this project in the next year and then further into the future, the community and the community board and other stakeholders are going to be able to come to the table and talk about issues as they arise. So I do hope that you would support this tonight. I think it's important to take care of these very vulnerable New Yorkers. And I will say that a part of the resolution that I really want to emphasize that was passed in committee is this idea that the community board and the local stakeholders, including the schools, including I think I had mentioned Asphalt Green before, including our neighbors, would all be involved in this advisory board. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Greg.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity here. I'm a community board member, but I'm also the executive director of the Stanley Isaacs Neighborhood Center, which is just a few blocks from the location that has been identified for the safe haven. I'm just speaking now to let you know that the Isaacs Center has been around for 50 years. We serve children, young adults, and older adults. Our commitment to about 6,000 New Yorkers every year. Our mission is focused on self-reliance and dignity across generations. And while we have a full service portfolio, education, food insecurity, older adult services, one thing we don't have is a supportive program to assist folks with housing. And so I just want to note that we believe, our community, our staff, our personnel, and our team believes that core to our mission, again, self-reliance and dignity, essential is housing stability. And Goddard is an exceptional provider. The safe haven model has been demonstrated to be successful, and the Isaac Center is committed to supporting Goddard in its efforts to be able to provide a safe and supportive environment for the community to address critical housing needs for folks who need it. So just wanted to throw that out there to let you know that the Isaac Center stands in support and seeks to support Goddard in its work and continue to care for the community in all the ways that are possible, especially during very challenging times. Thanks.
Thanks. Let's go to Billy next.
Hey, everybody. I support this project. I just wanted to say a few words about it. There's a lot of discussion about people hurting during COVID. Left out of that discussion is how people experiencing homelessness are hurting in our city and how COVID has only exacerbated that. It's exacerbated housing instability. It's obviously created a massive public health risk that's made it even more frighteningly dangerous for people to go into congregate shelter settings. I personally, I live on 86th Street. I live 500 feet away from a building that is permanent supportive housing. You wouldn't know it's there if nobody pointed it out to you. But, I'm, right there, 500 feet away. And I think we need more of it. I mean, the Upper East Side has, last I checked, about 0.1% of the city's homeless shelters or safe havens, housing for people experiencing homelessness. So I think we have to do more. I think we all recognize, if we just look on the street, that there's a lot of people that are unhoused. It didn't help that we ended overnight subway service, which effectively was a shadow shelter system in our city. So we need to do more. We need to do better. I want to address directly our neighbors on 91st Street. Look, I get it, and I get the fear and the concern. Goddard Riverside is one of the most exceptional operators in New York City. I heard from some friends on the Upper West Side that when they got involved at the Lucerne and providing programming, things improved dramatically. They are very well regarded. So it doesn't get much better than this. A safe haven with a great operator. If not this project, we're not going to support any project. And I know 91st Street, it may feel, well, why my street? But all of us need to be willing to take in shelters, I think, into our streets, whether it's more shelters on 86th Street, like I said, where I live, or on 91st, or elsewhere on the Upper East Side. I hope we'll recognize that We just have to do more because the city is not doing enough. And certainly on the Upper East Side, I don't think we're doing enough. So, you know, the very last thing I'll say is somebody spoke about the gentleman that Councilmember Kalos mentioned, who's decompensating. He's near that subway entrance on 93rd Street. How are we going to get that person housing? What is the strategy? That is the question I put back to people who are concerned about this project. Is it to ask that man to go to a congregate shelter? Is it to call for a safe haven on a different street? We are trying to get help to people who desperately need it in our city. Safe havens, I believe, are a great strategy. They're proven to succeed. And I hope the full board will support the resolution that was passed unanimously by the Health Committee. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Billy. Let's unmute Sarah.
Hi. So I just wanted to touch on some of the points that were made in the public session and to share a personal note. Faith Frazier in the public session mentioned that homeless shelters are unsafe and people go to extremes to avoid them, including jeopardizing their health by living on the streets in freezing cold weather. And we have this opportunity to provide shelter and support services for people who would otherwise be on the street. And for our neighbors who feel like these services should take place somewhere else, all that does is displace the problem for another neighborhood, and it doesn't actually solve anything. And we have the opportunity here to be the ones to help the most vulnerable. And the Goddard Riverside Services, they're a dignified way for our New York City neighbors to get back on their feet. When we embrace solutions like this, we transform lives rather than the alternative, which is to exacerbate and reinforce the forces that generated the loss of shelter in the first place. And for those who wonder why here, I feel that our neighborhood with its quiet streets, its our great public safety, this is precisely the place that people need to go to get back on their feet. And it's our time to do our part. And on a personal note, my upstairs neighbor, who has since passed, was a parole officer, and she brought some of the folks that she supervised into our building. They've aged in place, and to date, I think that most of my neighbors in my building wouldn't know who they are or what their pasts have been. And I believe that they've been able to thrive because they lived in safety, because they lived with dignity, and because they lived without stigma. And so I hope that we as a community can embrace this and share our beautiful neighborhood with the folks who need it most. Thank you.
I'm just going to jump in with a couple of things. First of all, we are talking about the program and not the building itself, not the zoning. The second thing I just would like to say, again, I think I've said it, I know we talk about wanting to help the homeless. I think we also have to realize we want to help us, the residents. The homeless are living on our streets. They do not have bathrooms to go to. They do not have medical care. They do not have food. And it doesn't make for a very good neighborhood, a friendly place to be. To put them in some sort of shelter, some sort of housing, in particular a good one where they have all support services, our committee felt was a plus for the neighborhood, not only for the homeless. It would be a win-win situation for everyone.
Okay, now let's call on Sharon.
Sharon?
Yes, I'm unmuting myself. Thank you. I support the Safe Haven proposal. And I thank the CB8 Health, Seniors, and Social Services Committee for their unanimous support of this project. I am heartened that Goddard Riverside will oversee the Safe Haven project. Goddard Riverside is a wonderful nonprofit social service organization. Multiple times, I visited its facilities on the Upper West Side. I've witnessed its legendary, compassionate, holistic delivery of social services. It is important to reiterate that Safe Haven is transitional housing. It is not a shelter. The proposed facility will have the necessary resources for its residents, including housing specialists, case management, harm reduction, recreational and wellness activities, including as well psychiatric care. Moreover, the building will have 24-hour security as well as a external security guard. In summary, I agree with Dale, the 8th grade East Side Middle School student who also spoke during the public session. To paraphrase her remarks, in summary, when we help the homeless, we strengthen our community also.
Thank you, Sharon. Chuck?
Chuck, just there you go.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Chuck.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to make a couple of quick points. I chair the board of Settlement Housing Fund, which is a nonprofit low and moderate income housing group with Goddard Riverside for years, and they are a terrific organization, and they really know what they're doing. Secondly, we also run a transitional facility that's smaller but similar to what Goddard Riverside is trying to do. And it's been a very successful way to serve as a helpful and transitional housing place for people to really get on their feet and get up to permanent housing or go on to do things and be successful. So I think it's a really important facility. And I think that the neighborhood will be surprised at how it will not be a problem at all. And I remember years back when we had a situation on 77th Street, which was a homeless center facility. There was tremendous opposition. It was passed and the board supported it, and it never was an issue. And it was a completely different kind of facility. So I'm very much in support of this facility, and I think appreciate the work of the committee, and I think that we should, as a board. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's turn to Russell.
Thank you. So first, I just want to mention that there was a very comprehensive presentation during the committee meeting, which addressed a lot of the concerns that were raised. And I think folks who were at that meeting have been making the points that were made during that presentation to address those concerns. On the notice point, I'll just reiterate what Barbara said, which was that there was an extensive effort to get notice out, and actually more than is typical for items that come before the community board. There was a deliberate, in addition to posting that was done, there were deliberate efforts made, and not just efforts, outreach was actually done to local businesses and buildings in the area to make sure that folks were aware of it, because the broader context here is this is coming before us a year before this facility is scheduled to open. And the whole point of this whole process has been to have full transparency around it and provide answers to the concerns that were going to be raised, and to do it in a way long before this was going to be opening so that concerns could be addressed before that time. I want to just say also that, the reason why we're doing this here, in addition to, or along the lines of what some others have said, there are homeless people already in this neighborhood. That's why this is being built here. And what the Safe Haven is going to do is primarily serve the people who are in this neighborhood. It's not about bringing in a bunch of people from outside. And so the big change that this is bringing is to add services for people who already are homeless in this neighborhood, who are already in the vicinity, free to go to 91st Street or wherever else, you know, whenever they want. And what this is going to do is make sure that they now have the services that they need to get into housing and, you know, be helped. The point about security was made. I just want to emphasize that they've committed to at least 12 hours of outside security, not just indoor. So that's part of this. In terms of the location, I want to say that this is something this is a location that was picked extremely conscientiously. I visited the block. I think if others go, they will find the same thing, that this block, that this safe haven is coming to, is overwhelmingly commercial. I don't think there is a mid-block location anywhere in our district that's not on one of the major streets that's essentially less residential than this block where the safe haven is proposed to go. So it's a very good location for it. And the last point is, it is as of right. That is what they've told us. To the extent, and basically, you know, this resolution doesn't address zoning. So if for some reason something comes up and it turns out that there are zoning issues, even though we've been assured that it's as of right, this resolution that's been put forward doesn't address that. And so if there are zoning variances or permits or, you know, changes that need to be made that come up, that's going to have to come back to the board, and we'll have a chance to address those when that comes up, because at the moment there aren't any applications to make those changes or anything like that, because this is as of right. And so if, you know, there need to be changes to the resolution to make that clear and to specify that any zoning changes are going to come back before us and that we're not addressing that in this resolution, I'd suggest that as a friendly amendment, but basically this is just not a zoning issue as it's coming before us now. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, and sorry for going on so long, is there is a community advisory board. It's in the resolution. They're going to be doing a community advisory board, which will involve representation from the community board. Thank you.
I will accept that as a friendly amendment, Barbara, and maybe Wilma, I don't know, you can unmute yourself.
We have to ask Tricia since she was the original, or is it just up to the chairs, Russell?
Let's ask Tricia.
Yes, I accept as a friendly resolution, amendment.
Great. Now let's go to.
If I just may say, also includes, we have asked them to include Roosevelt Island. There were stories about Roosevelt Island being like that, and we've added that to the rest to be resolved.
Let's go to Sandrea.
Greetings all. As a CB8 member and a very active leader in my community and beyond, I am compelled to speak on this topic. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. These United States has a homeless epidemic. I am disheartened that people are not welcoming those who are in need. A reality is it could have been you. It could be you one day. Homeless individuals are in need of shelter to eradicate this crisis. We witness luxury buildings being built for the rich, but we do not see these structures for those who need to be housed. I fully welcome and support this proposed facility in our neighborhood and look forward to supporting them in any way I can as a human being. Homelessness is not a crime. This is not about having background checks ran on people of need to live in any neighborhood. It is about alleviating a grand issue in New York City as well as these United States. Housing is a human right. There are so many vacant apartments in luxury buildings, yet every day people are without shelter, even our veterans that have served this country. We need more affordable housing. These single men and women should be welcome into my community, your community. They are our neighbors too. The unhoused or you and I, if it was you, wouldn't you want to be welcome? Thank you.
Rebecca?
Hi, I just wanted to urge my fellow board members to support this resolution and this safe haven. They'll be my neighbors, and I would be proud to call them my neighbors. I live on 92nd Street. It's unfortunate, some of the rhetoric we've heard, but we have a responsibility to do the most we can for the most vulnerable in our society, and we're not doing enough for our neighbors experiencing homelessness. So in our community, I feel we need to be leaning in and moving forward with more safe havens and building on the models of the Urban Outreach Center and of the churches in the neighborhood that are doing so much work in community centers, because COVID has laid bare so many of these issues, but people experiencing homelessness were suffering long before and being overlooked long before COVID. And just think about tonight when it's so cold, it's a cold blue night. Imagine sleeping on the street. Think about what if it was you. Think about what if it was you and your children. There was a point made earlier about how it's better to have the safe haven closer to schools because there are 17,000 homeless children. And again, I just ask that fellow board members lead with those thoughts and lead with empathy and compassion, and think about what you would want if it was you and if you were in this position, because so many people in New York, in our community, in any borough right now, are just one paycheck away from not having a roof over their head if it weren't for that eviction moratorium. So again, lead with compassion, lead with empathy. I'm so proud to call these people my neighbors when the safe haven opens, because I hope we will be supporting this application and doing everything in our power to move it through the process and be supportive on the task force. So again, just imploring my fellow board members to support this resolution, and I'm so happy to do so and look forward to more of this in our neighborhood to support our neighbors experiencing homelessness.
Anthony?
This is personal for me, and really should be for all of us. 5 years ago today, my uncle, who was a veteran, a Korean War veteran, and an attorney, died. He became homeless some years before that through no fault of his own that he could really control. He got help finding supportive housing in the Bronx and was able, because he had a place to live, become a spokesperson for the elderly homeless. That would have been impossible had he not had a home. And we cannot begin to become a fair society without making housing our first priority for everyone. That's it.
Thank you. Mrs. Brown?
Just confirm unmuting Mrs. Brown.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year to all. In response to our chair's request not to repeat any of the sentiments that were already expressed, my comments are going to be abbreviated. Goddard Riverside has a proven track record. I support this resolution, but would recommend for those in the community who are unsure to have staff and some of the residents of the Safe Haven program on the Upper West Side to meet with them, and so that their questions could be answered and they can express the benefits of the program. And thank you.
Elizabeth Rose?
Thank you. I have two thoughts that I wanted to share. The first is that while I agree this is not a resolution about zoning, zoning is an important component of an assessment of, is this appropriate for this neighborhood? So I very much hope that this project is as of right. I was looking forward to saying, isn't it wonderful what an as of right project can do in our community to help serve our community. And so I'm very hopeful that this is an as of right project. I support a safe haven. It is important to our community that we help the homeless people in our community. The second point that I'd like to make is that it's been suggested that this is a good location because it is not particularly residential. And I really want to express my concern about that as a sentiment, because that is effectively saying that we need to somehow isolate this population or separate them in some way from our residential communities. I've spent a lot of time on 91st Street in my role working with the schools in the neighborhood. I think it's also where I did a lot of my dog training when my puppies were babies. And I see it as part of the fabric of our Upper East Side residential neighborhood. So the notion that this is a good location because it's not particularly residential, I feel that that is a sentiment that I have a great deal of concern about. I'm very supportive of having Safe Haven, and I hope that this is in fact an as of right project. I'm very supportive of it.
Thanks, Valerie.
Hi, I just want to say that I've been involved in a not-for-profit that has been providing transitional housing to homeless women who have been involved in the criminal justice system for over 25 years. Right now, we house about 44 women who are being reunited with their children, usually in our facility for anywhere from 6 to 15 months. I'm happy to say that tonight, actually, we have 5 vacancies, which means we've been able to move people out of transitional housing into permanent housing. And housing is the key. Sandra said that, housing is a human right. Housing is the key to putting your life back together. And we have to provide that. Right now, unfortunately, the Upper East Side can only provide outdoor housing to these homeless people. I know about the generosity of our community because that's why these homeless people stay here, because people are helping them. I've gotten calls from Jim Klein's this week. Faith Frazier and I have been working very hard to get some help for a homeless woman who's living outside the East 72nd Street Neighborhood Association. If we had something like Goddard is proposing, I like Faith, feel confident that this woman wouldn't be living outside on the Upper East Side. She'd be living in a place where she could too maybe achieve permanent housing and help put her life back together. It is the saddest thing to see her living there every day. But in my heart, I know that the people of this community are supporting her. She has sleeping bags and food, but that's not what the Upper East Side is about. We are about lifting up everyone. And I think this project would be a real evidence of the generosity and compassion that people who live on the Upper East Side have for all of their neighbors. And so I support this wholeheartedly, and I hope everyone else will. Thank you.
Lowell?
Hi, I'm in favor of this. As a child, my mother was separated, unemployed, and we stayed in a homeless shelter, in a hotel room for a while with my sister and my little brother. And I am thankful and proud to live in a society where we have a safety net. I would also like to say and finish it off by saying that I'm sure if this housing was for homeless pets, dogs, and stray cats, there would be less opposition. And that's a real shame. That's all I have to say.
Peter?
I probably live closer to this than anyone else. I live in part of the same block. And I want to say I'm absolutely supportive. I welcome them as neighbors. And I would be entirely comfortable if it was helpful to be part of an advisory committee and help field community concerns. I have none. Thank you.
Yeah, and Goddard has promised to work with us as a board once a community advisory group comes together. Carolina?
Hi there. So I'm actually going to oppose this. not as myself, but as the members of the community who've come out tonight in opposition. And I think sometimes the board members make the decisions based on personal things as opposed to what the community members are saying. We had plenty of voices tonight who came to speak against the shelter or the safe haven, and therefore I will be voting on their behalf and voting in opposition.
Harrison?
Hi, yes. Well, first and foremost, thank you to everyone who spoke, and thank you to the board members that were part of presenting this resolution. Especially thank you to the Eastside Middle School students who spoke and contributed to this discourse, because, you know, I have a special place in my heart for them. I am an Eastside Middle School alumni myself. And so, you know, first and foremost, I'm very much in favor of this. I think that it's truly representative of who we are as a community. We're the Upper East Side. Slightly biased opinion here, but frankly, I think that we're the greatest community and the greatest neighborhood in New York City. And this is reflecting, truly reflecting the type of values that our community holds so dear. One question I have is that, you know, oftentimes many of New York City's homeless, especially the chronically homeless, suffer from drug addiction. And that's a reason that actually a lot of homeless people are homeless, especially chronically homeless. And so my question is, I know that a lot of people, a lot of homeless members of our community don't go into shelters because of drug restrictions as to whether or not they can enter the shelters without surrendering their drugs and not having access to drugs that they might have physical dependencies on. So my curiosity is to what the policy is for those who are suffering from drug addiction in this particular safe haven. You know, I know that there are going to be psychiatric resources that people will have access to when they're staying in the safe haven, but I kind of would like to learn more about that. How does that address drug abuse and drug addiction?
I believe drugs and alcohol are not allowed. However, if someone is inebriated, they are still allowed to enter, but maybe we can unmute someone from Goddard to clarify.
Yeah, Rebecca, I'm unmuted. So Harrison, Rebecca's actually right. There's no paraphernalia allowed, no alcohol, no drugs. If a person is under the influence, we will take them in and deal with them in isolation until they can clear up. And we have harm reduction specialists that are part of our team, as well as other kind of microdual diagnosis service to help them at that point. But there's no treatment allowed, and for no substance abuse allowed. Yeah. For that very reason. A lot of what we try not to talk about the shelter system as a whole, as a blanket comment, but the reason for small numbers of people is to allow us to have a direct view of what's going on with them and to deal with them quickly and swiftly.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that, you know, as a concerned member of the community. But so, sorry, just one more time. You gave a fantastic answer, but also, are there drug rehabilitation programs that the shelter offers that specifically kind of address those who are struggling with drug addiction?
Yep, that's absolutely a part of the service delivery. Both, it's important to recognize it's both substance abuse treatment and psychiatric services. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, people who have depression or other kinds of mental health challenges, there's a term called microdual diagnosis, meaning that there's one thing that's feeding the other. So sometimes there's depression and they're self-medicating rather than taking some form of prescribed medicine that allows them to address the issue. It's often the self-medication that drives the drug use and abuse.
Yes. Okay.
So the treatment is two parts. It's both psychiatric and alcohol and drug.
Very glad to hear that. Thank you.
And I'd just like to say I'm calling on people who haven't spoken yet first. So next is Sherry.
Hi, I am in favor of the concept of safe haven. I just want to address some of the issues from a zoning perspective. I went back and looked at the resolution that we're being asked to vote on tonight. It specifies that it's an as of right project, and it also says the specific location. I know we're talking about an amendment, but just what are we, if those specific terms are in there, I'd like to hear what amendment we're putting on, that we don't lock ourselves into that location. If we find out from a zoning perspective, there may be a better location that doesn't need a lot of variances. So I'm just trying to be clear on what we're going to be voting on, because, you know, what if this is not the right location? So I don't know, can somebody address what friendly amendment? I mean, how are we, my issue is, what are we voting on? The resolution says it's as of right, and it says we're at that location. So I have no problem with saying we support the program, but I'm a little concerned if we lock ourselves in to that location, because it may not be the right place for it.
So I think if I can, because I had made the friendly amendment. So what I have in mind is to say, you know, we can say, whereas the board has been informed that this is as of right, we could say, whereas Goddard has not asked us for any zoning changes, and we could say, resolved, the board is not passing on any issues of zoning or related to zoning. And in the event that zoning changes are needed, or Goddard makes applications for zoning changes in future, those will come before the board in future.
And should we remove the specific location, therefore?
No.
No, I think we want to leave the location, but I think, but just specify that we're just not touching the zoning because they haven't asked us to look at zoning.
All right. Thank you.
Rita?
Hi, Happy New Year to everyone. This is a really fabulous program, and I will tell you, I live at 91st Street in 2nd Avenue, and there was opposition to the Wynn building, Women in Need, which is on 91st Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue, that the, I don't know what the neighborhood thought was going to happen, but the same rhetoric that we heard for that building, we are hearing this, and none of it came to pass. It is one of the most successful buildings. It is for homeless families, mothers with children. Nobody even knows they're there. And though people are in opposition, they would be in opposition just because it's new and they're frightened. I have a question. What is the age range of the people who will be living in this proposed building?
Yep. The age range varies. They're adults, so not. There's a whole separate shelter system for children under 18. So these are adults that would be somewhere between 18 and much older. You know, whether it be 80, 90. So the age will vary.
The reason I ask that is if they're younger, there's a bigger turnover as they mature and get better and get a job, etc. But if they're 90, they are a permanent resident there almost.
I think
not many that are 90, am I right, Rod?
I think there may be I think that may not be quite the way it works. Given the amount of support for senior housing or special needs housing, in terms of people who are seniors and frail, and supportive resources in terms of what we call supportive housing, not supportive housing, but it's special housing for seniors who need additional support. There are more beds available for that population than there's younger people. So for younger people, we'll definitely have to work up their income. We work on a packet to move them to permanent housing. So I think it may be a little bit different for people who are extremely older and need it's assisted living or needs assisted living care.
Right, because in working with women with families, is that most of them were employed. They just weren't earning enough money. They lived in a building, and the landlord said to them, we need to renovate your apartment. And they put them out, and then it was so expensive they couldn't come back, and they were homeless. So I am absolutely in favor of it. The neighborhood will live. They will breathe. But there'll always be opposition. Don't let the opposition stop. Thank you.
Barry?
Good evening, all. I'd like to move to approve the application before us wholeheartedly, unreservedly, unquestionably. Please support the application, which I just called the question on.
Is there a second?
Test.
Michelle.
Michelle? All right, call to question. If you don't want to call to question, please raise your hand.
We have to lower everyone's hands. Now you can ask that question, Rebecca. Sorry.
Let's let Billy take over.
Okay. The motion is on the table to approve.
No, to call the question.
To call the question. Okay, so raise your hand if you object to calling the question. Is that what we're doing? Raise your hand if you object to calling the question. Okay, seeing no hands, we move to the question, correct? On the resolution, which is in favor of the safe haven. Raise your hand if you are either objecting, voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause. And if you're on the phone, Will, how does someone raise their hand again if they're on the phone?
It's *9 on the phone.
Okay. All right. I'll start with Carolina Tejo.
I'm voting against.
Thank you. Next is Elaine Walsh.
You got cut off, so try that again, Elaine.
Okay, you got me now?
Yeah.
Abstaining because it's unclear what the Spenley amendment said about zoning.
Got it. Anyone else voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause? Okay, seeing no other hands, I will go count the votes.
Okay. All right, I believe that was the only item for health, seniors, and social services. So we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which was the Women and Families Committee.
Oh, wait, do you want to go to Gail Brewer?
I can wait.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No,
Yeah.
I can wait. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm fine. Keep going. I'm fine.
Okay, all right, we will press on.
I
Women
am
and Families.
working on something else. So I'm fine.
Okay, so let's turn it over then to Gail Barron and Peggy Price, please.
Good evening. The Women and Families Committee met on the 12th of January, and our meeting was centered around the urgent need for quality, affordable, accessible infant and toddler childcare for working parents. We were really blessed with having three outstanding speakers. Allison from the Comptroller's Office had written the NYC Under 3 report. Shania John from the New York City Health Department gave us a lot of interesting data on the scarcity of really acceptable child care facilities for infants and toddlers in our neighborhood, and how important it was to be able to start to search for them. And then the third speaker was actually Gail Brewer's chief of staff, who explained to us what was happening with the Head Start program and the number of slots that were being cut. Basically, after we had these great presentations, we had a very good discussion, and the committee agreed to move forward with a resolution. And to basically look at what was in the resolution, we are suggesting that the New York City, the NYC Act, be passed, and it will include subsidies for low and moderate families with incomes of up to $100,000. There will be funding for creation of new facilities and the renovation of existing facilities. And it will also increase financial assistance to childcare providers and will allow them to have professional development as well. What we found was that the legislation had been first written in the state legislatures in 2019. The report was issued by the Comptroller's Office May 19th, 2019. And what we're asking the state legislators to do is to pass the NYC Under 3 Act, which is basically a 6-year, $660 million plan, which would address New York City's urgent need for affordable childcare for infants and toddlers. It would create additional childcare facilities. It would lower the contributions for low and moderate income families and for their cost of childcare, and importantly, keeping them in the workforce, and enhance the quality of childcare through increased reimbursements and professional training and development to childcare providers serving infants and toddlers in subsidized care. The resolution was passed by a unanimous vote by the 9 CB8 board members who were present at the meeting. Are there any questions? Okay. If not, would somebody like to?
There are several.
I can't see on my
Okay,
computer.
Tricia, Michelle, Russell, and then Elizabeth Rose.
Okay. Well, Tricia, you were at the meeting, so we'll come back to you if you don't mind. How about Elizabeth Rose?
Okay, Elizabeth Rose.
Thank you. So I wholeheartedly agree with the goals and objectives of the Act. I am, however, not convinced that this is the right funding mechanism, the proposed taxes. And so if somebody would like to speak to why is this the right way to fund this, I'd be interested in hearing, but I am primarily concerned that this is specifically attached to a specific approach to taxation to fund it.
Yes, I'd like to address that. Thanks. And we discussed this at length in the meeting. I myself, I'm Peggy and I'm the co-chair. I actually favor a process of tax credits over imposing taxes on income. And however, we approved this bill because we felt that this was the proposal that is being presented to the legislature now. We do not know whether a proposal for tax credits will follow on this. What we do know is that President Biden has a major plan for expansion of child tax credits and child care tax credits, both of those in his current agenda. And so we're thinking that it might behoove us at this point to hold off on talking up tax credits, which I favor, to see whether this will be provided nationally in Biden's plan. So we passed this unanimously, thinking something has to be done right away to help the mothers and the families who are making difficult choices between keeping their jobs and having to stay home with their kids. And so this is what's before us now. So this is what we want to pass as a first step to helping the mothers in our community.
Peggy. In addition to Russell and Tricia, there was somebody else, I believe, Will.
Michelle.
Michelle. Okay. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of need for this. There's no question about that. But the little I read of it, it seems to me that at the moment, the funding is going to come from payroll taxes. And in light of what's happening, you know, with our businesses, I just don't think that that's a good, as we talk about a funding mechanism, I don't think that's a good place to fund this at this time. It's for that reason that I won't support it.
Well, it is a moderate tax and it's only on the top 5% of corporations. So basically small businesses, fortunately, will not be impacted. Tricia?
Hi, everybody. I wanted to thank Peggy and Gail for holding this forum. I thought it was an exceptional forum. They've heard me talk about childcare concerns probably for the better part of a year and a half, as long as I've had a child. So thank you, Peggy and Gail, for putting this on. I'm extremely supportive of this. This is something that I've been talking about for a long time. I couldn't have said it better myself when it comes to the payroll tax. It is only for the top 5% of private employers. This is a program, I'll just add, that was kind of constructed by Comptroller Stringer's office. It was informed by the experts in these fields. It is something that's extremely comprehensive. It would create a sliding scale of affordability for folks, and it would have top caps for how much you would be able to spend, so that you're never spending more in rent than you are in more in childcare than you are in rent. It is, I don't need to say this, but I will. The report that the comptroller put on showed that the total childcare options in our neighborhood only account for 20% of the actual need. By those definitions, we are a childcare desert. We are also over 25% comprised of families with children under the age of 18. It just frankly doesn't make any sense. And we're really not meeting the needs of our families in this case. So I would really encourage you to support this. It is a plan, it is a proposal. It has been backed by the folks who know this work and know how it can be effective. I think it's amazing that it also has these ideas of expanding childcare options, maybe even using our empty storefronts to do so. So it really kind of hits multiple, birds with one stone. So I do encourage you to support this. Thank you, Peggy and Gail, for holding this on. This is very important. And I will say that, that 20% piece, that the reason that all of these options only taking care of 20% of the need, that's why childcare costs can go up to $50,000, $60,000 a year. I will share that I'm paying almost $3,000 a month for my childcare for one child. It's just absolutely unsustainable. And so I really, really encourage you to think about those families, particularly those families who have had pay cuts and have had layoffs and are struggling to do work from home at this moment. So thank you again to the co-chairs for holding this. I urge you guys to support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Russell?
Call the question.
Okay. Second.
Seconded by Tricia.
Okay. Which secretary will handle it?
If you would not like to call to question, please raise your hand. Seeing none, if you would like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause, please raise your hand. Michelle?
Abstain.
Valerie?
I'm gonna abstain, but can somebody read this resolution again? I'm not sure I heard exactly what it was.
I don't think we want to read the whole thing,
Okay.
but maybe, can we do well, why don't we just read the be it resolved clause? You want to do that, Gail?
Sure. Be it resolved that Community Board 8 Manhattan urges the New York State legislators to pass the NYC Under 3 Act, a 6-year, $660 million plan, which would help address New York City's urgent need for affordable childcare for infants and toddlers. It would create additional childcare facilities, lower the contributions low and moderate income families would make to the cost of childcare, and enhance the quality of childcare through increased reimbursements and professional training and development to care providers serving infants and toddlers in subsidized care.
Yeah, I'm going to abstain.
Okay, then the resolution passes 45-0-2. Billy, if you want to read that.
No, one more.
First.
Elizabeth Rose.
Elizabeth.
I appreciate the elegance of abstaining. I'm just going to vote no. I cannot vote for something that has a specific tax attached to it.
Okay, then it is 44-1-2.
And the vote on, yep, and the vote on the safe haven was 46 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstaining.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gail and Peggy.
Sure. Thank you.
Yep.
So we will now move to street life and Abraham.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Russell. Happy New Year, everyone. All right, so street life, pretty straightforward. We had 8 unanimous SLA approvals. Do I have a motion to take them all together?
Rita, just unmute.
I make a motion to take them all together.
Great. Do I have a second?
Sherry Weiner.
She raised her hand?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
she
okay,
did.
sorry. Okay, great. That being said, would someone like to call the question? Raise your hand if you'd like to call the question.
Call the question.
Elizabeth
Okay.
Rose has her hand up. Yeah.
Okay, great. Raise your hand if there's any opposed. Otherwise, let's go to our secretaries. Cool.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, anyone who is opposed to the motion on the floor is to take all of the street life resolutions proposals together. And anyone who opposes that, if you would raise your hand, that would be great. Or abstain or not vote for cause. And as we give a couple more seconds, maybe. Okay, great, thank you. So it appears to pass unanimously, and that would be at this point, I think, 47 to. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks,
47
everyone.
to nothing.
All right, thank you. Let's go to our borough president, Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much, Russell, and thank you to Community Board 8. You know, I'm standing and listening, and it's very impressive in terms of your commitment and caring. And I obviously spoke at the hearing, and I do support the safe haven, and I support Goddard Riverside. I'm not going to repeat because people are even more articulate, but just so you know, I live right near a safe haven, and I'm embarrassed to say I did not know it was there, and I like to think I know everything about the neighborhood. So I have a feeling that'll be the same issue, but congratulations to the thoughtful comments by Board 8. There's a couple of things going on. Obviously, I don't want to talk more about the COVID situation, except to say that in my situation, we have, I don't know how many calls and a technology system that is in great disrepair. I believe there are about 8 websites, if I count them in Manhattan, and maybe more, in order to navigate. That's what a senior has to do, not to mention others who might be technology challenged. So if there is more supply, then I hope to goodness that the mayor and the governor and all the other private sites can come up with something that's like going to an airline and figuring out, when do I get on the plane? Do I get on Tuesday or Saturday? Just give me a date and don't make me go 100 times trying to schedule something. People are almost in tears and they're literally showing up in doctors' offices in the wheelchairs, begging and pleading. This is not what we should be doing. So I simply state, we're going to have a Manhattan task force on this topic. Board 8 will certainly be involved, and it's discouraging. I'll leave it at that. And of course, you have, in one case, the police department was doing the vaccinations. I don't know. It's making me crazy. In terms of helicopters, just so you know, same deal. We have had a phenomenal meeting. I think I mentioned it before with the FAA, and we are now working at least with 2 of 3 elected officials in New Jersey, and we are going to have a task force. You're certainly welcome to be involved between New Jersey and New York. And it seems to me, I love NYC and Company, but they too are giving discounts to people who go to New Jersey and get on a plane. And it's just to have a Instagram photograph. That seems to be the real reason for all this. And you don't need to be hovering over Central Park just to take an Instagram. That is not appropriate for the residents of Manhattan. So we're fighting that tooth and nail. I think you can see from the chat, and if not, we'll put it in. We have a police reform toolkit that we just announced. It is a big challenge with the mayor and the governor. By April 1st, the mayor has to come up with what is a good police reform package. And he's got 3 people who are involved in making that decision. And there have been hearings, one of which I moderated. And now we have a toolkit will list all the many, many past proposals that have come on this topic. And I think it's a good thing to look at because we're constantly reinventing a wheel that doesn't need to be reinvented. And this is a really hard topic, maybe because I'm a little jaded. There have been so many discussions of it, but I just want to bring it to your attention. Our newsletter and other newsletters talk about the money that is coming for small businesses. There are funds for rent, et cetera, federal, state, and just make sure that you get every bit for your wonderful nonprofits and churches and synagogues and businesses on the East Side, because it is so complicated to figure out what you're eligible for, what you're not. You have a great office, and I know they'll help, but please pay a lot of attention to all of that. And certainly we have some capital money that's available until February 21. I think you know that. I want to just mention one school issue. I'm very supportive when parents get together and figure out something that makes sense. I don't know why DOE has to use the word no all the time. And so with this dual language program for in French, very diverse group of parents. I was quoted in the Post and I spoke to the DOE saying I'm supportive. The school is underutilized. These parents want to stay in the public school system. I don't understand why you don't say yes. So we're still fighting it, but it makes it really hard because the deadline for getting into kindergarten has come and gone. So frustrating beyond belief. And I know applications are due February 1st. You know that already for those who want to apply for the community board. But most importantly tonight, congratulations. Roosevelt Island is always in our thoughts. We're working on the bank issue. I think we might have some good news pretty soon. They don't have vaccinations. They didn't have testing. We're trying that. And of course, we always love Kohler. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Let's go back to Abraham here, who may have more to say about finishing up Street Life.
No, I was going to see if you permit me to ask Gail a question.
Well, no, we don't do the.
Okay.
We've got a strict policy here of no elected official questions.
Fair enough, Mr. Chair.
All right, I think that is that's all for the agenda. So if there, I'm not aware of any old or new business. So if there is a motion to adjourn, that would be in order.
To adjourn.
see Kaz has a bunch of hands up for seconds, it looks like. So thank you very much, everybody. Take care.
Night.